all of the cards are out. All of the cards we're talking about.
Battle for Zendikar.
Oh, yeah. Before we talk about that, there's one thing I wanted to mention. The new mana base is out. So we do have the two-color, I've heard Battlelands, Tango-Lands.
I don't know what they're
whatever
called.
they are.
I've heard Battlelands mostly, though.
All right, we're going to call them the Battlelands. Anyway, they're two colors, and they're mountain forest, and it enters the battlefield on tap if you have two basic lands. Now, here's an interesting thing. Now, it's only going to be around for 6 months while we have the fetches. But while we have the fetches, we have perfect mana. And with this perfect mana, what you have to realize is that our fetches, we only have 5 fetches. The shards, like Esper, are incentivized to play 3 colors because you have 2 fetches of each, and it makes your fetching that much better. But let's say you're playing 3 colors that aren't next to each other, like you're playing Sultai. Your 4th color is basically free. You can splash another color for nothing. Essentially, it costs you 1 land
2
slot.
shards.
Right. So you can play a 3-color deck with excellent mana, with extra mana slots that you would put stuff like the Pain lands in or utility lands. And we'll talk about, there's some really good utility lands here. You can play a 2-color deck with 2 free splashes on either side if you want 2 light splashes that are free. So like you can play your green-white deck that has red cards and black cards for no cost. Or you can play a 3-color deck with a very light splash very easily as well. You can play a heavy Sultai deck with that as well. You're looking at running easily in a lot of these 3 and 4 color, or the non-Esper decks are probably going to be running anywhere from like 14 to 16 fetches. I know that sounds crazy, but you can have more fetches than you have the amount. You run 1 or 2 basics for each of the colors you want, for your main colors. Your off color, you only run something like the Cinderglade for it, right? So, because you can fetch it with anything. And then you go basically turn 1, fetch land, basic. Turn 2, fetch land, basic. And they're probably different colors. So now you have 2 of your 3 colors, and the rest of your colors you can get for free. At any time, enter the battlefield on tap. The thing to remember with this is that you are paying life. Aggro decks will be really strong. Like, you're looking at 5-color zoo decks, very consistent.
So aren't we losing a lot of cards for the aggro decks, though?
We are, but we're losing cards in a color. So you won't have a mono red aggro deck, but you could have a red base aggro deck that's actually 4 or 5 colors with almost no downside. And the other upside is we're paying more life for our lands.
So I think aggro will get enough weaker, though, at the very beginning, that's probably fine.
Yeah. I think it's going to even out pretty well. I'm not saying that you'll only be able to play aggro, but with people worrying about like aggro being extra weak or these lands not being as good for aggro as they are for other colors, I think most mana bases are going to be... You can realistically expect the game to take about 5 life from you. You're at 15 life total.
So I like that you can just ignore the new cards and just play the deck that was good the week before they released. I like doing that when I go to the first tournament.
You can definitely do that. I think at the first big tournament you'll see. The thing that I think is most important, though, is the mana base needs to change. Because, like, right now the Abzan mana base, the 3-color we talked about, its mana base is actually going to be really bad considering what it could be. So let's say that the Abzan 40, or the 23, sorry, the 36 cards stay the same, and you change the 25 lands. You want your 25 lands to be more consistent, better representing. Like, imagine Abzan with no mana problems. That's how your mana base should be. Let's say that, you take the mana base, no problem mana base. You take the new mana base with the old cards, and I take the same 60 from before. Well, if I stumble on mana,
you're not going to be able to do that because Scrylands are getting bumped out.
Right.
So, yeah, here's the lands because we were talking about them.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start with all cards. I just wanted to mention that, like, that's super unique, and we will probably never have that in Standard again.
Yeah.
This is the most perfect mana ever. All right. We're basically gonna do a limited review for most of the cards and point out the constructed cards. There will not be that many constructed cards.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people already saying that this set seems pretty weak. Like, they spoiled the full art lands, and then they spoiled the whatever they're calling those lands that they're reprints.
Yeah,
and then all the rest of the cards nobody really cares about.
Well, I mean, there's 2 parts. First of all, they're trying to make Standard weaker intentionally. They're taking out a big set and they're reducing the set size. So we're having a higher turnover. We're having a weaker set overall, which is fine, right? Modern's a stronger era. You don't need to have strong Standard. But the thing is, you remember when people used to say Treasure Cruise was going to be a bad card before it started played?
That's a good point.
People were like, you know what? No one's gonna ever be able to play Treasure Cruise. It costs 1 billion million mana, man. How much do people play Treasure Cruise? Oh, all the time in every format, right?
Until it was banned.
I have faith that we'll be able to do a lot of different things, and that a lot of these Eldrazi will be much more playable. You guys remember when Ugin first came out? People said Ugin wasn't playable, that 8 wasn't reachable. We play some Ugins. I mean, 8 to 10 is a big jump, but they've given us a lot more tools. All right, so
True.
Let's start with Blight Herder. Costs 5 for a 4/5. When you cast it, you may put 2 cards from your opponent's exile into their graveyard. That is the Processor ability. You'll see that on all the cards that say Processor. And then if you do, you get effect. Here you get 3/1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion tokens. You can pay 1 sacrifice. Sacrifice it to get 1 mana. So the reason we're talking about this card is it has a lot of information on it. First of all,
I've noticed a lot of the cards have a lot of text on them this time.
Mm-hmm. But the fact that the Eldrazi spawn Scions now are 1/1s makes a big difference. It means in constructed, when you're making them, they have a higher cost. They're going to cost more. You can't get 0/1s and 1/1s at the same rate. So the mana is going to be more sparse, but the effects are going to be more pronounced. Like if this made 3 0/1s, if you just kill the Blight Herder, you've gotten rid of the threat. This is actually an 8/5. Sorry, yeah, an 8/9. As far 7/8. I can't count. A 7/8.
That's sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna agree with him, so he sounds correct.
But I mean, like that's a legitimate threat. We're gonna see that throughout the whole set. We're gonna see the spawns and such, and we have powerful cards that are uncommon, like Blight Herder. I do not. How do you feel about constructed about this card? Let's say there are Eldrazi decks. Let's say they're decks that are hitting 10s, 11s, 9s, 12s. Do you think you want to play a 5 mana card that ramps you 3?
This one will probably be played if it is easy to get the effect on it, because those 3 can be sacked for future Eldrazi. So
exile effects work well with Oblivion Ring. So let's say that me and Brad are playing and I Oblivion Ring his creature, and then I cast my Blight Herder. I remove his card from underneath the Oblivion Ring to his graveyard. I get a good effect, and then if you get rid of the Oblivion Ring, you don't get anything.
Exactly.
So that is a big upside, and we will see multiple of those effects. And there are cards built into the set that are on rate, so they're the right cost, with exile as well. We'll see if it comes together or not, but yeah, all right. So,
yeah, it'll get played if you can get the ability reliably.
All right, you want to read us Bane of Belaged?
Alright, so when he attacks, defending player exiles 2 permanents they control. And this is an uncommon that exiles permanents on the attack.
Yeah, it's a 7 for a 7/5, so it's weaker than you would expect. And your opponent does get to choose the stuff. It doesn't target, so if they have a Shroud creature, or a Hexproof creature, sorry, they can still, well, they could anyway, because it's Hexproof, but whatever. It's non-targeting.
It's non-targeting, so they choose the targets. So it does die to removal, but at the same time it's an uncommon, so...
Yeah, this is for limited.
Yeah.
I like it. It is blockable and killable, but you're usually getting a 3-for-1, even if the one's bad. Sometimes you're just getting rid of 2 Scions, and that's kind of weak, but sometimes they don't have Scions, and you're getting rid of legitimate creatures.
Yep. I like it. I mean, I think I'll play it in limited. I can't wait to build the strictly Eldrazi deck that just ramps into Eldrazi.
Alright, Conduit of Ruin. 6 for a 5/5 Eldrazi. It's rare. When you cast Conduit of Ruin, you may search your library for a colorless creature with converted mana 7 or greater and put on top of your library. The first creature you cast each turn costs 2 less. So you play this on turn 6, you get your 7 or 8 drop, you play your land, you drew your creature, you in theory cast it. It's strong. If you can cast a 7 or 8 drop, after, like, if you have enough mana, if you have the 6 lands to cast this and you have another land in your hand, you can always get the 7 drop, even if they get rid of the Conduit. Do you think this is constructed playable? It is a 2-drop pop.
If the Eldrazi deck exists, I believe this will be played. A 5/5 for 6, right? Not too terrible.
6 for a 5/5 that is... It's not drawing you a card, but your card quality goes from random card, could be a spell, could be a land, to an answer. Or something you have to answer immediately. Okay.
And we can't negate the fact that he could just go get, an Ugin, right? No, does it say creature only?
It's a set, yeah.
Okay, so it's creatures only, so he can go get basically any other Eldrazi at 7 or greater.
Yeah, and they can.
And you'll hopefully have the land in your hand to actually play it.
Yeah.
Alright, so...
Or you can
and if he lives, you'll definitely get to play it.
Yep. So. You can't get each other with him. Remember, recost 6, so they don't chain.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably a good thing. Alright, so Breaker of Omnis is another card that we see for limited. 8 for a 10/8. All creatures able to block Breaker of Armies do so. I will mention that Breaker of Armies is the best Magic card metal name that I've heard, metal band name in recent times. This is true.
Definitely a word.
All right, so this card's a hard card to get around. You can't attack into it because it will block your guys, but you have to attack into it or you lose all of your guys.
Yeah, I'm really thinking this is gonna be the pivot point. Like, you're gonna hit 8, you're gonna drop this, and what are they gonna do to stop it?
Well, if they don't do anything, they're gonna lose the game.
Yeah. So the only thing they can do is drop a huge power creature, a huge toughness creature. Well, there aren't any huge toughness creatures that can block this, right?
Yeah, and all creatures have to block it, so you choose the damage.
Yeah.
You just basically, when your opponent plays the Breaker of Armies, you need to get your creatures out to try to have 8
You
total
need to
toughness.
have a removal spell, if they even made any removal spells.
They did. We'll keep going through. So this is another great card we see in Limited. Both of these cards I'm happy to have. They do different things, but at the same time they do the same thing. They're cards you have to answer.
I think since they're in commons, you're going to want to take them a little early, if you want them.
You might have to first pick them.
We're going to have to see when we actually draft, though.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell that stuff until you get it
All
in
right,
your hands.
Desolation Twin. 10 for a 10/10. When you cast it, put a 10/10 colorless token in play. Now, these are the when you cast triggers. These are important because let's say that Brad's playing hard control. He's all counter spells. I cast Desolation Twin. He counters the Desolation Twin. I still get the 10/10.
I like that.
Do you think it's good enough for constructed play?
So, I don't think it's going to take over any of the other Eldrazi that already get cast.
So this is going to be competing with Ulamog. They have the same cost. Would you rather have this or Ulamog?
Probably Ulamog.
That's what I figured.
So,
we might see this come out if there's a lot of counter spells floating around because his ability on counter does put pressure on the board.
yeah, I mean, he might be played in Standard if there's an Eldrazi deck because, I mean, that's an excellent ability. 2 10/10s for 10 mana.
Yeah.
You're probably not cheating into play in Standard. So,
Deathless Behemoth. 6 for 6/6 Vigilance. That's okay as far as limited is concerned. Not great. Sacrifice 2 Eldrazi Scions. Return it from the graveyard to your hand. Activate this only anytime you could activate a sorcery. So this lets you turn your extra Eldrazi spawns into the... I think that this card is fine and limited. You're not going to have an unlimited amount of Eldrazi spawn, but later on it does let you rebuy it. It's powerful. But I think it might actually have a place in Standard where you can build a deck that has more Eldrazi spawn. Like, a lot of cards come with 2 Eldrazi spawn. If a lot of these cards, if you just imagine as like, Blight Herder's processing ability is return that one creature to your hand, or we'll see more cards that make the Scions. This card can be a card that has to be answered multiple times unless they exile.
and that's good for Standard because I think it's going to be a lot of Eldrazi on Eldrazi action.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
let's keep going here.
Endless One's an interesting one. Brad, would you like to tell us Endless One?
Sure. So I saw this card spoiled, and it's getting a lot of hype, just because it's completely scalable. Eldrazi, what are you doing?
It was messing up. It was lagging for a second.
Oh, okay. So anyway, this one is as big as the amount of mana you put in it. That's pretty neat. I don't really have anything impressive to say. It's just that being completely scalable for an Eldrazi is very good.
It's all right. I like some things about it. I don't think it's constructed playable, even though it can go in any color. That's the big plus to it. Usually, this effect you would expect this to be a green card, right?
That's
if
true.
you had green X for a 1/1, it comes into play with X 1/1 counters. That would be like
A normal, that'd be a normal green card.
But it can go in any color. I think in limited, this is playable. At the 1 space, you don't want it, but at any spot above 1, it's perfectly efficient. 2 for a 2/2, 3 for a 3/3, etc., etc. I don't think that it's the kind of card that I'm going to go bonkers over. It doesn't have evasion. You're just going to chump block it with Scions, etc., etc. But it's an effective use of mana. So, one of the things is that Eldrazi kind of archetype will be defined by the common big creatures, because you're not always going to see the sweet uncommons.
That's true.
How do you feel about the Eldrazi Devastator?
I'm liking it.
8 for an 8/9 trample.
Yeah. I think as long as they pass the old school power toughness tests where you take their power and toughness, add them together, divide by 2, and see if the mana cost is the same or less, they'll probably be fine for your Eldrazi draft deck.
They're fine. We just want a little bit better than fine sometimes, since a lot of these other smaller cards are going to be powerful. But, yeah. And I mean, 8/9 is big. It's one of the biggest cards. It tussles with all of the other Eldrazi we've seen, except for Desolation Twin, which is a rare. So that's nice. All right, so let's talk about Kozilek's Channel. I talked about it last time we were on the stream a little bit, and I think it's one of the most important cards in the set because it's 5 for a 4/5 in colors. I would already be happy with that card. I would play that card in most of my decks. Maybe not ecstatic about it, but it would be fun. But it makes 2 colorless mana. This is, awkwardly enough, a 5-mana ramp spell that you're happy to have.
Yeah, and most sets you would not take this.
Yeah, what do you need to cast above your 5 drops?
Yeah, what do you need to cast above 5 is what most people would say. But in this set, that's going to be where you really start, I think. I think there's something flying around. Daniel's trying to catch it.
Yeah. As a 4/4, this will also combat your opponent's allies and stuff. It does a good job defending. It can be a good attack thing if you don't have things to ramp into. It's just odd. This is the middle of the card brand. It also gives other color access to ramp. That means your white decks, your green deck, your white decks, your blue decks, which don't usually have access to mana, have access to mana. And the fact that it's a common means that you can usually get 1 or 2. I think you're going to have to pick it up kind of high. It fits a really nice role, but it's excellent.
I think it's going to be the thing that lets you build the Eldrazi deck you want to build in
This
draft.
is not a standard playable card, though.
No, probably not. Now, Gruesome Slaughter, it's not been getting a lot of good press, but I think if you're playing against an Eldrazi deck, this is what you want in your Eldrazi deck. Like, if you're playing Eldrazi versus Eldrazi, this is what you want.
I think you're right. 6, colorless.
Turns all your creatures into kill spells for their creatures.
Your creatures deal damage equal to its power to target creature. Now, it's only your colorless creatures, but it's also good with Scions. If you have 6 Scions out and you cast this, it's not great, but you just use your 6 Scions to throw damage wherever you wanted. It does go in a specific deck. It does need to be built around. I don't think it's as powerful in Limited. I think this is a much better constructed card than Limited.
It'd be a great
Usually.
sideboard card for the Eldrazi Mirror Match, which will probably be very common.
If you do have a dedicated Eldrazi deck, let's say that there's a mostly colorless ramp deck with some small control elements or whatever, this would be a fine card to run 1 or 2 of in your main board in that it is a controlled board wipe.
That's true.
I mean, if your opponent's playing creatures, you just paid 6 mana and killed whatever you wanted to kill.
Yep, and then you probably swing the rest of your Eldrazi through.
Just tell us about Oblivion Sower.
Alright, so target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of their library, and then you may put any number of land cards from exile into battlefield under your control.
Now, is it just those 4 cards or any land
It's
card?
any land cards that you've exiled this game, or they've exiled this game from their own deck.
This is a beat-em-up mechanic for Delve. I'll tell you that much. It's going to put some pressure on Delve players. It makes a real cost to those Delve cards. 6 for an 8, 5 for 5/8. It's kind of defensive. It's fine. It's kind of survivable to creatures. It's a nice sweet spot. You'll always play this in Limited. But in Constructed, I think this does have a decent chance. If there's any amount of exiling going out at any decent rate.
Well, so Modern has a lot of Delve in it. Do you think you would ever play this in Modern?
I don't think I can afford to play Enabler cards at 6 mana. I think that... I mean, like...
That is what I was thinking as well. I don't think it's going to do enough to the board by the time you can play it to do anything in Modern.
There's one deck that
it's
I would...
unfortunate, because if they'd have made the same mechanic on like a 3-drop, then you would play it.
You would. The place you could see this is out of sideboards for Tron or out of sideboards for Amulet. In the same spots you would run something like your Worm Coil Engine or your Titan, because it can get those effects in longer matches. But I don't think it'll be there. But that's the only place I would imagine it in Modern.
Yeah, and I think you'd rather have the lifelink.
In a lot of matches
Yeah,
and in more
so.
bodies. Take Rune Processor, 7 for 7/8. Alright, we're good
That's
on
not
Limited.
terrible.
When you cast Rune Processor, you may exile a card from... You may take a card from your opponent's exile and put it into their graveyard. If you do, you gain 5 life. Again, this is only okay, but it's a common. You could easily have one of these in the 8/9, and you could have 3 big creatures. And sure, it's not the best creature. It's not, mind-blowing, but the fact of the matter is, it's a 7/8. You've got to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
It gains you 5 life, which I think is one of the best parts about this card, is that buys you the time you need to be able to attack. Right? I mean...
So, and I think they're just more Eldrazi this time around, right? It feels like there are.
I think they're more Eldrazi at common. There's less at higher rarities.
Oh, okay. So,
all right. So
that's good for drafting.
We're in the removal set. We've got one of each. So tell us about Titan's Presence, the possible constructed playable.
Okay, so for 3 mana, that's always where you kind of start for constructed playable cards, 3 or less. As an additional cost to cast it, reveal a colorless creature from your hand. If you're playing that type of deck, should be fine. Exile target creature with power less than or equal to the revealed creature's power. So if you're playing Eldrazi, it's pretty much just a removal spell for 3, and it's instant.
Is it modern playable?
Is it modern
In
playable?
Tron.
In Tron.
In a Tron, Eldrazi sort of like worm coil engine shell.
So I think for Tron, there's not something you want to take out of the deck for this one.
Okay, that's what I figured.
So
interesting thing about limited here that we wanted, like all the cards that were before unlimited were limited playable. I think this is the first not limited card that you're not looking towards. It requires a lot of things. You have to have several big or moderate sized colorless cards. The devoid cards help, but you need a significant amount of them. You can't pick this early. It's very conditional. It'll be good if your deck's built around it properly, but this is the card you pick later. So early on, people probably pick these up too early. You want to be picking this up as though there was a piece of your synergy-based deck that doesn't work without it. Unlike Scour from Existence, which is 7.
yeah, that's going to be first pickable in a lot.
Exile target permanent. If you're playing the small ally deck, it's not super exciting. You need to be able to get to 7 mana. That's a lot of mana. Mm-hmm. It does answer anything. It answers instant speed. It's common. But, I mean, how many did you really run in your deck? 2? 1?
Well, for playing the Eldrazi deck, I would take as many as I can get.
Well,
you're not going to take them over the ramp, though.
Well, we need answers that can answer early creatures, right? I mean, you're going to die to a horde of allies. This is the card that answers the Eldrazi. We need the cards that answer the... also need the cards that answer the allies. So later on, we'll compare this to some of the other removal, and we'll kind of say what we'd rather have. This is a good baseline, though. All right, we're almost to the end of the Eldrauzis. So we've got Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Brad, you want to tell us about this guy?
So this one, exile 2 permanents when you cast it, as opposed to the other one that, gives you another turn?
No, that one was destroy one.
Destroy one thing. Okay. This one is also indestructible, just like its old counterpart, and is the same mana cost as
Nope. The other one costs 11 for an 11/11. This is 10 for a 10/10 indestructible, exiles 2 on cast.
Okay, so this one also exiles 20 cards off the top when it attacks.
All right.
So it is a 3-turn kill.
2.
You think 2?
By the time you cast a 10 drop, they've already drawn.
You're cheating into play if you're playing.
There's
modern.
no. Okay, so here I'm not talking modern. Let's talk standard. Let's talk standard first. First of all, limited. This is a great card. If you build your deck around it, it's going to be great. That cast effect's going to win you the game on its own. Standard. Let's go to standard.
Okay, so standard, you get to exile 2 permanents because you're not cheating it into play.
Yeah, there's no cheating.
That's great.
Oh yeah, you're catching way up. The worst case scenario is you're playing a deck that only has lands and counter spells, and they countered your 10 mana spell, and you exiled 2 of their lands, which is still a big deal.
So anyway, two swings, this should kill them from exile. Now in modern, if you cheat it into play and then attack with it, it's going to get 20 cards. So this may be able to replace some things in other decks.
Maybe.
So in the sneak attack deck, for instance, a lot of the times when you sneak attack, you win because of Annihilator 6.
Yes.
And so this one, attacking, you might win because you run them out of cards.
But
You're probably still going to want to go with the Annihilator 6.
Yeah.
So now there's another card in the deck that it might replace. Let's see. No, there actually isn't. They all run a specific role, and this one's just not as good.
No,
even in modern, that one's legal. So
we might see this come out in sideboards and maybe Tron, where they can cast it as a sideboard for answering other Tron decks, because they can exile 2 permanents is a big deal. You can exile their Ugin and one of their Tron, or 2 of their Tron pieces and put them off. And then, legitimately, you probably will attack multiple times. And if they block with a Worm Coil, this gets through the Worm Coil all 3 times. They block, they block. But
they don't usually play anything that's 10 mana now, but this might be good for the sideboard.
Yeah, in the Tron mirror. If Tron's what you're looking at, this is a trump in Trons. Not sure, but that's the only place I really
I don't think it'll make it to Legacy. It's just not as good as the other cards printed.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, if we get a way to cheat it in later, so one of the things that Brad was talking about is cheating in. There is no ways to really effectively cheat in cards at a significant mana cost consistently right now.
There's no way in Standard, right?
Necromantic Summons.
I have no idea what that card does.
It's a 5 mana card.
Oh, okay.
There are 5 mana cards. But
this one doesn't have the shuffle clause, so it's possible.
And if you're cheating it in, it is good. I mean, if you get this in on turn 5, you are doing a good job. You're in a good place. It's just, I think just being able to cast more big creatures is worth your time. The cast effects are very strong on this card and on Desolation Twin.
Well, so if you cheat this card in, you should win, though, right? It's indestructible, so they're not killing it. You
There's
just
a ton of exile. We're going to see, as we keep going through this, we're going to see a lot of exile. There's ways to answer the Eldrazi. Alright, so Ulamog's Despoiler. 6 for a 5/5. It's a processor, and it's an uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, you may take 2 cards from exile and put them into the graveyard. If you do, it comes into play with 4/1/1 counters. So 6 for a 5/5 or 6 for a 9/9.
And I think the more reliably you can trigger the ability, the processor ability, the more this will get played.
It's true.
And I don't know how easily you're going to be able to do that.
We're going to have to wait till we play the format. I mean, that's just it. Whether or not it's, you got to build a deck around it. It happens incidentally enough that it's a free roll. I think it's going to be in between those. I think you're going to have to kind of hedge towards it, but at the same time, you don't have to dedicate your whole deck. But we'll see. We're not really going to know until we play.
Mm-hmm.
I actually am not that impressed with this uncommon one. Even if you are paying 6 for 9/9, that's awesome. But with the Scions and stuff, they can't just block it. I mean, it is only a 9/9.
Yeah, but a 9/9 on 6 is a lot better than their 8 drops that are 9-somethings.
That's true.
So you're going to get a couple of turns to attack before they can do anything, unless they just have the clutch removal spell.
Yep, they're just going to put them on removal, but don't think that this is going to end the game quickly. It's just going to essentially be an abyss. Your opponent's going to block every turn, 1 creature at a time, which is fine.
It'll get a lot of value then.
Alright, so let's look at a really cool card before we go to white. Void Winnower, 9 for an 11/9. Your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana costs. 0 is even. Your opponents can't block creatures with even converted mana costs. Your opponents can't block with creatures that have even converted mana costs. First things first. Morphs are 0. 0 is even. You cannot cast morphs with this. You cannot block with morphs. It's a weird card. I don't think it's playable. But it's a weird card. It's kind of cool, right?
No, I don't believe it's playable. But 11/9 for 9. That's decent. I think it trades or straight up kills almost every Eldrazi.
Except for the indestructible one, yeah.
Yeah, except for
But you can't cast him if he's out. You can't cast through the
that's a good point. And it can't block.
Yeah.
So it walks through.
We may see this.
I mean, I would play it if I got in a sealed pool, but,
Yeah. It's fine as an 11/9 for 9, and it does prevent your opponent from doing things. This can often put them in a rough spot. If we see it getting constructed, it's because a specific deck pops up which only has certain answers. That's all, right? This stops your opponent's Ugins and Ulamogs, etc. Like, there could be a way where this is a sideboard.
And it's 1 cheaper than those, so theoretically you could get it down before they...
And if they're a control deck in your ramp deck, you're going to get it out before too. But let's go to white. Colorless, there's not a lot to say about colorless. It's a lot of top-end finishers in limited as far as limited's concerned. It's your payoff for taking those cards. There are solid cards at common, uncommon, and rare. So your deck isn't dependent on getting lucky to start that draft. There were 3. Let's count the common ones real quick. There's 1, let's count Scour from Existence. 2, Ruin Processor. I'm not counting the Kozilek for finisher. Yeah, so there's 2 super solid. So there's the Devastator and the Processor at common. It's just super solid, free roll common cards that no one else wants. If you're playing the Ally deck, do you want those cards really?
No.
No, so you're going to get them if Eldrazi is open. So let's go to white. Let's start with Angel of Renewal. 5 colorless and a white. Angel Ally, 4/4 flying. There are a ton of allies in this set. And some of them have ally effects, and some of them do not. This one does not. It's when Angel of Renewal enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. Usually a 4/4 flying is the top of your curve. So let's think about it in several different decks, because we do have the Ramp Eldrazi deck, and then I think we have the General Creature / Ally deck. I think those are the 2 main decks that we're going to see a lot of the time. I think I'd play this one in either.
Yeah, it seems playable. It doesn't seem great, because you're going to gain a lot of life. I don't know, around 4, 5 maybe by the time you get to 6 mana, if things are going pretty normal. But then it's only the 4/4, and that will not end the game super quick. Whereas most of those Eldrazi were much bigger than that for 6.
It is a 4/4
They
flying.
were 5/5s or.
It is a 4/4 flying, so it is getting through.
So.
And there is a life gain matters theme in Black and White, so that life gain trigger is more important than it seems. For the Eldrazi decks, you can imagine that they'll often be ramping up, and that if you gain enough life to survive one more hit, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But you do need to be gaining life in like 5 to 10 chunks, because Eldrazi put it out.
Big, yes.
I'm happy with this.
It's fun. I mean, we'll probably end up drafting one.
Oh, I'm sure we will. All right, so let's look at Angelic Gift. Colorless white, enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature is flying. Would you be happy with this in your deck?
Yeah, so there was a cycle of these, in Theros block? They were pretty decent.
Yeah, the draw card makes it fine, and your opponent's not going to have that much instant speed cheap moves.
So, and think about it, you could put this down on an Eldrazi.
God, yes, you could.
So, now this Cliffside Lookout doesn't seem like something I would play.
It's 1 for a 1/1 with an ability that is relevant but expensive.
Yeah.
Basically, you're playing this if you're running your ally deck and you need more creatures, but this is a bottom rung creature. This is the kind of creature I do not want to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it's your 23rd card, I mean, there's worse, but yeah, you don't really want to play that if you can avoid.
All right, so we've got a rare here, Emera Shepherd. It's 5 white. Let's scroll down a little bit so you guys can see it.
All right.
There we go. Flying, landfall. Now, these are the double landfall trigger cards, in that they have a special effect if you drop a land of their color type. This one is Plains. Whenever land enters the battlefield under the control, you may return an non-land permanent from your graveyard to your hand. If it's a Plains, you may put it onto the battlefield instead. Do you think that that's worth it, or do you think a 4/4 flying is too fragile?
Well, so for constructed, that's probably not going to make it. For draft,
that's fine.
It's probably fine.
It is, yeah, and your creatures are going to die. This lets you block more against Eldrazi decks. It often means that your lands turn to spells and your other things turn to spells, so it gives you time. They don't have Annihilator. They're not building insurmountable advantages. If you can keep putting creatures out, you'll be okay.
And it's a permanent, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can get back Planeswalkers or anything. Usually it's going to be creatures and limited, but in other formats, yeah, you can get your Planeswalkers back.
So you could theoretically, if a Plains had died earlier, get the Plains and then...
Non-land.
It says non-land.
They're
okay.
careful about that. All right.
Oh, well.
Courier Griffin, 3 white, 2/3 flying. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2. I was unimpressed on this first glance. It's kind of a border card if it's good or not. But the life gain matters theme, there's like a bunch of triggers that'll happen when you gain life in white and black, so that might sway you towards it. I won't pick it up early, but
it's kind of overcosted for what it ends up being.
It is. If you have enough other cards that care about gaining some amount of life, this will help you push towards that.
And it's also not an ally.
It is not an ally. That said, you do have a lot of allies. I think everything else, these two aren't an ally, but I think, more allies right here. Expedition Envoy. 1 for a 2/1 ally. Not normally going to want to play this card too much. The fact that it has 1 toughness matters a lot with the Scions. It just dies to Scion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I might actually be... It's hard to say if I'd rather have the Expedition Envoy or the other ally that's a 1/1 that pumps. They're both kind of bad.
Yeah. I don't know how small you can go in this set.
Your opponents will either be playing small creatures to combat yours, or they'll be playing Eldrazi, which will have Scions. So I think 1 toughness is a bad number. Encircling Fissure is exciting, though. 2 colorless white, instant, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt by creatures target opponent controls. Usually fogs are bad. When I attack Brad all out and he plays this fog and then blocks and kills my creatures, it's awesome! And then you can awaken it for 5 and you get a 2/2, which means that 2/2 can also block. So I think this is a great card.
That's pretty good. I think that'll be a pretty high pick.
Yep, reprint of Felder Sovereign. There may or may not be a life gain deck. That's all we know.
Oh,
if there's
the draft?
In Standard.
Oh, in Standard? I hope there is in Standard.
Yeah.
Don't we still have gain 10 life if you've got a power 4 greater creature? Don't we still have that?
Maybe. I don't know. I have to go back and check. But if the deck's there, it'll be there. If not, I don't like it. It's kind of hinged around 1 or 2 cards, but whatever. Unlimited, this is a great card. It's going to gain you life a couple turns, and if your opponent plays a big creature and you can't attack into it, you're usually at a decent amount of life by then, and they can't really swing out because you can swing back to gain life.
Yeah, I think this is great for limited too.
Yeah,
it has vigilance and lifelink. Who cares if you get to 40 or not?
It was moved from mythic to rare too, so you can see it.
That's good.
In the cat beast row, we've got 2 cat beasts. We have Failed Our Club, 1 colorless and a white for a 2/2. Sacrifice it, destroy target enchantment. There is a set of really powerful enchantments here. I could see this being an important sideboard card.
This is also a bear, which is usually pretty good.
I will point out, in Rise of Eldrazi, bears were awful. I don't think this set is Rise of Eldrazi. I think this is a blend. I think you can play small decks or big decks. But I will say, I mean, your opponent plays some couple of Scions out there, it does invalidate this card. Like, there are 4 mana cards that make multiple bodies. Just,
yep.
I think it's fine.
It's probably a sideboard card, but a 2/2 bear with an ability is, pretty good.
Yeah,
normally
if
in
it
draft.
if it fits in your curve, you might need it. We'll have to see. This is a really interesting looking set.
It's a really different set.
Ghostly Sentinel.
So Flying Vigilance 3/3 for 5.
Seems good.
That seems fine. There aren't too many flying cards so far. There weren't any Eldrazi with flying, right? So.
Yeah, and I mean, if we have any good equipment or counters or anything, I mean, Flying Vigilance is a really good base to throw stuff on, right? I mean, you give that guy +2/+2, and that's a beast.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Defender, you're probably not playing this.
Well, let's say you're building an Eldrazi deck that you just need to live to a certain amount. Do you still think your offer on this? It is a 0/6.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building an Eldrazi deck, you might play it. You're really hoping not to play this, though.
I think you're definitely right. So. I think that this is the kind of card you don't want to play, and if you have to, you're in a rough spot. All right, so let's talk about Constructed again. I think Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, is the best constructed card out of this set that's not a land.
Yeah, that's probably hands down.
All right, well, let's read it and figure out why. 2 colorless, white, starts at 4, +1, it becomes a 5/5. Ally. It's an ally creature, so it gets ally effects if you play an ally that turn as well. That's a big deal. And, it's indestructible from null damage, normal clauses like that. Now, the first turn, you're probably not going to +1 it, because you're going to 0 it to put a 2/2 White Knight ally creature token. If Allies is a deck in Constructed, I think
this will be a 4 of.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, even if it's just an ally producer, that's really strong. And then the last ability, right off the bat, you can sacrifice them to give creatures you control get +1/+1. Now, one of the big problems with playing the Anthem effects is that they're temporary and you can get them blown out for that. You can't do that with this.
Yep.
I don't think the plan is to, make him and then start an emblem, but sometimes you'll have to. If your opponent's holding things that can easily get rid of planeswalkers and you need it, you can. But usually you're just zeroing a couple times.
Yeah, so you could theoretically play this and 0 it, and then +1 it and attack, and then -4 it, and still have it around.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. You could also play this and +1 it, and then give yourself an emblem, and
there's a lot
just let them deal with it. There's so many modes to this card, and they're all good.
Yeah.
This one may actually make it into Modern.
I think it's going to replace Elspeth Terrell, the 4-mana Elspeth. I think he's better.
Well, it does make 2/2s instead of 1/1s, right? But doesn't the other one make more than 1/1? Or am I thinking of the big one?
Elspeth's 3 abilities is +1, get a 1/1, +1, +3/+3 flying.
And lifelink, right?
No, just flying.
Oh, okay.
+3/+3 and flying, and then -8 indestructible everything.
Okay, yeah, I think this will replace Elspeth.
And
which is funny because they've reprinted Elspeth like 50 times.
And she's still great. This card's main mode to me in my mind against a lot of decks is make a 2/2, attack for 7 until you answer something. Because every turn, after you make that first 2/2, the next turn you +1 him, you attack with your 5/5 and your 2/2, 5/5 and a 2/2, 5/5 and a 2. That's a lot of pressure for a control deck. They can't wrath it. They have to have Planeswalker killing, and then you still have to answer the 2/2. Like, that's really mean. And if you're running 4 of them, there's no reason that the next turn, as soon as they kill your Gideon and your 2/2, you just do it again and make them commit 2 spells to get rid of Gideon or die.
Yep, and getting 2 cards for your 1 Planeswalker is how Planeswalkers work. Right. That's why they're so good.
Gideon's Reproach. I was worried about this card initially because I thought we might have a lot of big creatures, but white has a solid amount of cards that I already want to kill. I'm sure the other colors will. White colorless instant deals 4 damage to attacking or blocking creature. Solid, and
I think this is a little bit better than they've been printing them too.
It is. I think it's to give white a little bit of reach. I think it's its main removal spell. The thing is, you got to spend 2 of them to kill an Eldrazi, possibly 3, so it can be tough. But do you think it's good in standard? Can you see a place where you want this?
Good in standard, it probably is actually. There aren't too many 2-mana removal spells, especially after the cycle.
There's Celestial Flare. Would you play this or Celestial Flare?
Isn't Celestial Flare double white?
Yep.
So you're probably playing a 3 or 4 color deck, right? So you probably don't want double white.
Well, imagine your mana base. You got 16 lands and you can get any of the duels you want in multiples.
Well, Celestial Flare, you also don't pick the target.
That's a big point. You don't pick and it does less.
So.
Okay. Inspired Charge is the kind of card that you might run 1, maybe 2 of in your Eldrazi deck, or not sure, sorry, your ally deck, as your white space finisher. Now, there's a chance that you'll be running sort of your Scion deck, which is an Eldrazi deck too, where you can do that, but there's not any Eldrazi in white, I don't think.
So the interesting thing about this card for me is usually when they print these, they've been sorcery. So this one can be used for blocking.
Yep, and this one can be used after blocks.
Ah, that's even more impressive.
Yeah, after blocks, you're dead. I see, you're dead. Yep. This might be, I don't think it's contracted playable, but it's an excellent limited card. 4 colorless white, Inspired Charge is 2 colorless white for a 2/1. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. It's an instant. Hero of Goma Fata. 4 colorless white for 4/3. Ally, whenever Hero of Goma Fata or another ally enters the battlefield, your creatures gain indestructible.
So I think this will be almost unbeatable if you get it in a draft. Assuming you build around it.
And you're on the attack.
Well, if you build around it, then you're always going to be on the attack, right?
If your deck doesn't falter.
Play them, everything is indestructible. Next turn, ally, everything is indestructible. Turn them sideways.
Yeah, it'll be good. It's a good aggressive card.
So,
do you remember that if you were on the back foot, this card's less than impressive, but...
Yeah, he does almost nothing if you're on the back foot.
Well, he's a 4/3. I mean, that does something. Just not great. All right, so here's the kind of card that I'm really not happy with. I think this is the first bad card that I don't think is playable at all under any circumstance. Kite Sail Scout.
And a lot of people continue to play this kind of thing. If they see them in their sealed pool, they're just like, I'm going to play all of them. They're 1/4 flying. I'm going to do so much damage with this guy. And you're probably going to hit me for 5 with this guy. And then you're going to draw your second one, and I'm going to draw my first flyer, and they're going to be 2 dead cards.
Or, it'll be turn 7, and you'll draw your 1/1 flyer.
And it will do nothing. So on the first turn, if you drop this against me, you're probably going to hit me for 5. And then it's going to be completely dead, and any other copy you've got in your deck is going to be completely dead.
Yeah, just don't play these guys.
Yeah, they're not good.
Core Blade Whirl is 1 colorless 1 for a 2/2, and it's a core soldier ally. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield, creatures you can control gain first strike. I think this is pretty solid. If we have ways to make instant speed allies, if we see some with flash or something like that, that'll make a big difference defensively. But I do think that this is kind of one of those backbone ally cards. I don't think it's a high pick. It is an uncommon, so you're not going to see it that much. I don't think you're going to pick it the highest, but I think the ally deck is just going to curve out a lot of the time. I think that, before we were saying a little bit about how bears weren't good in the original one, I think that the ally deck is 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop. Try to kill the, your opponent plays their first Eldrazi on turn 6 or 7. You swing out with your team and finish them off before they get really going.
I think if you're playing allies, you're going to want to pick this one higher than Daniel's saying.
You think it's
because first strike is so important in combat. It wins so many combats, first strike, or makes them just not block.
So you think this card's like a B instead of like a C? Because I think this is just a fine card that you'll be happy to have in your deck, but you won't pick high. But you're thinking...
So how many allies are in your deck? Because if there's like 5, this is just a bear. But if there's like 10, if like almost all your creatures are ally, or like 80 of your creatures are ally, that's a lot of first strike they have to deal with.
When we go through the set, I looked over it a little bit. What I noticed was all 4 of the colors, except for green, have a lot of allies. Green is a little bit more landfall themed. Like the main themes in this are Scions and Eldrazi, which is this kind of ramp deck that's going wide to prevent. The quick ally deck, which is based around white, the heaviest ally color, and then red, and then black, and then blue and green. Then there's an offshoot side green deck, which is like landfall matters, lands at instant speed, which we'll see. So
so I'm thinking allies with first strike are not something your opponent wants to see, which is something you want to see.
Yeah. So. All right. So let's go down to a really interesting card I want to talk about. Core Castigator. 1 white 3/1. Now here I would be like, I'm out. The Scions will kill it. It's no good. But then that text for that core wizard ally, he's magic, man. Core Castigator can't be blocked by Eldrazi Scions. That's really cool. That's a great way to make a 3/1, which would normally be fairly irrelevant in this set.
And unplayable.
Yeah, and now you have this ally that you're really happy with. And sometimes your opponent's going to be in a position where they don't get to trade favorably because they're...
Especially if you give it first strike.
Yeah, or anything. I mean, it can't be chump blocked by tiny creatures. They have to commit real cards.
Yep.
All right, you want to tell us about the Entanglers?
So this one has Rally, which when it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. So this is a 5-mana 3/4, which has been playable in other sets. But the Rally ability means that you can tap down their one big creature that you couldn't attack through. So it seems like this is the top of your curve for the ally deck.
This is, yeah, we're going to see several great allies at 5. This is an awesome card. Like, later in the game, if you have 2 allies or multiple small allies or anything else, this is really going to put them on the back foot here.
At least for one turn.
Multiple turns. Every turn you draw an ally, you get. Let's say your opponent and you are close, and your opponent has a couple of big creatures. They can't afford to attack with all of them if you can tap down multiples.
Yeah, and I wonder how many times you're going to be like, well, I could play this ally, or I could wait till turn 6 when I play this on turn 5, so that I'll get more tap effects.
That's right. We can make some sort of bad joke about Ally and Alpha Strike together with this. We won't. You can think.
He will later. He will later.
I might. All right. So Lithomancer's Focus. 1 white for an instant. White instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 on end of turn. Serviceable. Prevent all damage that will be dealt to it by colorless sources.
So this seems kind of niche. +2/+2 for 1 at instant speed is decent. You're not going to want more than one of them probably. But if you have a couple in your sideboard, you're not going to feel too bad at going up against Eldrazi. It's okay. It's playable.
It's a really good defensive card there. You can take your one creature. Now, you're still probably going to have to double block. But it means that instead of you losing your creature or having to triple block to kill an Eldrazi, you can now double block and play a Lithomancer's Focus, and you just lose 1. So you did trade probably 2 for 1 there, but you got to realize you're probably putting a lot of resources to get those Eldrazi's out. And how many can you run? How many 8-drops can you really run?
Man, I don't know, but I hope it's a lot, because that's what I want to play.
I think
that's what I want to play the entire time we draft this. In fact, I'm just going to pay for all the drafts so I can just force Eldrazi.
I think it's going to be between like 3 and 5. You can't play more than that, really.
Okay, you do what you want, Daniel. I'm going to force Eldrazi every game.
70 Eldrazi! Alright, so let's go to Lantern Scout. I think this is one of the cards that make... If Allies is playable, this will be part of the deck.
And it's unfortunate that this one's rare for draft purposes.
2 colors, white, 3/2, human ally scout. When it or an ally enters the battlefield, you
they all gain lifelink.
Lifelink.
But it's all creatures, not just your allies. That's pretty cool.
So yeah. Oh, EJ Key says the last guy is heavy infantry. He probably sucks. Heavy infantry was not good because it was a one-time effect. This is a multiple-time effect. So it's heavy infantry. Every other card you draw that's an ally is also heavy infantry. It's a big gap there between tap 1 creature 1 time and tap 1 creature every time I play one of my creatures. It's a big deal.
Well, also, this set's a lot slower.
Yeah.
Heavy infantry was in a set where you didn't play 5-drops, really.
Yep. You needed higher impact 5-drops. So anyway, back to Lantern Scout. I think this is obviously a first pick for Limited. We'll see if
unless you're forcing Eldrazi like I am.
Okay.
Every time.
Okay. But I think that if there's an ally constructed deck, we will see this in it. It's got that kind of oomph in it. You might not be running many. You might run 2 and then 1 in your board against other creature decks because it's not that great against the control decks. But it's fine. 3 power for 3 mana is okay. All right. So Mandiki Patrol. 3 for a 2/3 human knight ally. When it or another ally enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain vigilance. I think this is one of the better ones against the other ally decks.
That's true. That's true. Oh, here's some landfall. So here's a first strike. It's a 2/3 for 4, and this one gets +2/+2 when you landfall.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Ondu Greathorn. 2/3 for 4 first strike is underrate.
And then the landfall brings it to overrate. So
yep, somewhere between. I'm not terribly excited about running it, but if I need a moderately big creature, it'll make the cut.
It's really unfortunate that This won't get played in Constructed. However, it's way better for Constructed because you have fetch lands.
No, we will see some smaller fetch landable creatures that I think we'll see play, but we'll talk about those as we keep going down. EJ Keys, Heavy Entry wasn't good the turn it came out either. Again, these are different formats. Origins is a very speed-oriented format. Your 5-drop had to be defensive and strong, had to hold the things back well, and then have a big impact on the board. This is going to be a slower set. You're going to have plenty of turns after turn 5 to gain that value of tapping multiple creatures. So they're really comparing the same cards. Like Divination is sometimes variable playable in Standard. It was not at all playable if it was a Magic Origin. So cards will change. Cards like Opportunity have gone from the best card in the set to unplayable. The texture of the set will change based on converted mana costs and different things like that. But we're going to keep going. Alright, so let's look at some interesting cards. Awakens an interesting ability. So, Brad, you want to tell us about Planar Outburst, the constructed playable one?
So this is 5 mana Wrath. This destroys all non-land creatures, but it also awakens to give you a 4/4.
For 8.
Yeah, so I don't think this will be played in anything but Standard. And it's not actually pre-selling for very much because none of the last Wraths have sold for very much.
It's true.
So
there's an interesting thing here. The more Awakened that is played, the worse this gets. Awkwardly.
Yeah, I think you want to just stick to the one from the couple sets back. That's just 5 mana to destroy all creatures.
You might be running one of each. I don't know. We'll see.
You might
it's
be.
Interesting. I don't know how much that 4/4 is worth or not. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know how many times you're going to get to 8 mana in a Wrathy kind of deck.
I mean, if you're running one of each, I don't know. We'll see. I think the real problem is how much Awaken is run. Like, if people run a small amount of Awaken, like if it's in everyone's deck, that's a big deal that you can't answer their creatures.
Yeah.
Undo Rising is a cool card. One and white colorless sorcery. Whenever a creature attacks this turn, it gains lifelink until end of turn. I would not play that card, by the way. That's the bad half. Most of the Awaken cards are a solid card with a bonus. This card is a card I will not play with a great card. Awaken 4 colorless white. Awaken 4. Now it looks like 5. You get a 4/4 with lifelink. That's not how this works out. Because it can't attack because your land will be tapped. If you have 6, you can do that. But you can pay 5, get your 4/4, and then attack with one of your other creatures and gain some life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you imagine this card more as 5 mana, 4/4, when you play this creature, target creature gains lifelink until the end of turn, that's a little bit...
That's a little bit better. I think the optimal thing would be to use this...
turn 6?
To basically turn the game around. Yeah, turn 6.
Yeah. Or, you can cast this on turn 5, or whenever you need to. It is each creature.
Yeah, I still don't think it's going to be a high pick, though.
No, I don't think it's a high pick either.
It's a really cool card, though.
You want to tell us about Quarantine Field?
Okay, so I like this card mostly because it's basically an Oblivion Ring plus. It's a little bit more costly. So it enters with X isolation counters, and then for each isolation counter, exile up to 1 non-land permanent until it leaves the battlefield. So I think this might actually make it into... probably not anything but Standard, actually, because a lot of the Oblivion Ring effects and stuff for Legacy, you put in your sideboard because you get them for free off Show and Tell, and they don't target. And then a lot of the ones for Modern, you'll be paying too much mana. So it's probably only a Standard card.
Let's imagine that there's Whitetron. Would you play this in Whitetron?
Whitetron?
Whitetron.
I would not play a Whitetron. No, that would be a terrible deck, Daniel.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if there was a Whitetron, that would mean something.
No,
okay, there's not a Whitetron.
You still wouldn't play this.
Okay.
Because playing Red, Green, or Bluetron leaves you much better cards than this one.
Alright, so let's talk about the retreats. There's a whole cycle of them, and they're powerful. And there's a reason they're powerful. They're not creatures. 3 colors, white, enchantment. Landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield, choose one. Put a 1/1 white ally creature onto the battlefield. That makes an ally every time you have a land.
That's pretty cool.
If your deck is 17 creatures, 2 of which aren't allies, that's not unreasonable. Lands and a couple cards like this, almost every card is an ally. That's awesome. Second ability, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Those are both strong abilities. Here's the downside. when you pay 4 mana, you would like to get more than nothing. So
That's true.
all of the retreats, if you can, you would rather play them the next turn. I would rather turn 5, play my retreat, play a land, get an effect. I played my 4-drop before that. That won't always be the case. Sometimes your hand will have a curve where you have a 5-drop and nothing to go with the retreat. That's fine, but you need to be wary of the fact that these do cost you a lot of tempo, and you can't afford to just pack a bunch of these in my deck. I would never run more than 2 of these.
So I doubt this will ever be worthwhile.
In Limited?
Yeah, in Limited.
I think it's great in Limited.
You do?
Well, I mean, every time you play a land, you either get ally effects in a body, or you pump all of your guys to outrace. We'll see some more of them.
I'm hoping the format is slow enough to make this work, because otherwise there's a whole cycle of cards that are just useless.
They have different costs too. Let's keep going. So we're split on the retreats, but we'll see. Let's go.
I'm really hoping the other retreats are better than this one.
I think that's one of the best retreats. Oh, man.
Oh man.
All right,
that's rough.
You tell us about.
Hope I'm wrong.
The Serene Steward.
Okay, so this is another bear with an effect. This one is also an ally. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1, and you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. This seems completely playable for an ally.
It's fine. You pay white. That life gain matters theme is through black and white, so yeah.
So I think making your creature slightly bigger over time is perfectly playable on a 2-drop that you may never use other than a bear.
So Eddie's asking us, probably depends on how fast the format is. Does anyone have a sense for that? I think that this is essentially a blended format in that they want there to be an aggressive deck that kills somewhere around turn 5 to 7, but the elements for an Eldrazi deck to slow it down, to have this looming Eldrazi threat. There's a lot of tension. I think they're trying to create a format where there's a giant Eldrazi ramp deck.
Where there's a battle for Zendikar, if you will.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's it. They're trying to put them in. It's not everybody's a ramp deck, and it's not everybody's an aggro deck. So some of your cards are sometimes going to have to be sideboarded out depending on the match. Like, in the Ally Mirror, I might be siding out certain cards, and against the Eldrazi decks, I'll be siding in other cards. But yeah, this is one of the cards of the Life Gain Matters theme. So, Royal's Retribution. 3 white, instant. It deals 5 damage divided as you choose amongst a number of attacking or blocking creatures. That's great.
I don't think that's terrific, though.
Limited.
I think 5 damage for 5 divided as you choose is not what you're going to be wanting against.
It's not against the Eldrazi. It's okay.
It's not against the Eldrazi, but
it's
against
okay.
Allies, you might be able to put them in the right places, but
that's what it's for.
You might get a 2-for-1, but for 5 mana, like, I would hope for more.
Sometimes,
I mean, you'll take it because it's removal, but
sometimes it's more than that too.
They could have made it 8 damage, and I would say, oh, that seems like a pretty decent card. Whereas here I'm saying, that's not really something I want to high pick. So
it's good that you don't make cards. Just 8 damage, man. That's a lot. 2 is I mean, if you can think about this, a lot of the creatures we're seeing here, those are creatures, have 3s, have 2s. You know, there's a 4 that was higher than normal though, but we're seeing a lot of 3s and 2s as far as the smaller creatures go. So you're usually going to kill 2 creatures of your choice, or you can use your Eldrazi Scions and some of that to trade too. I mean, you'll get your cards out of this. You're not getting everything you ever wanted, but sometimes you'll get a lot. Sometimes you'll attack into your opponent's Eldrazi Scions, and your guys have trample for whatever reason. You can get rid of 5 Eldrazi Scions, etc., etc. Yeah, Crazy Eddie, this is not as good of a defensive card. I think that this is basically like you attacking into them and getting rid of it. I do agree that it is something that you can play around by just not attacking and leaving your opponent up on that. I would say that this is an aggressive card. Alright, let's keep going. Sheer Drop. 2 white. Destroy target tapped creature. Awaken for 6. It's all.
That seems great.
That's what I'm looking for.
Whereas the last removal spell was,
I mean, this has the potential to be a 3 or 4 or 1-for-1, whatever.
Yeah, but I think a lot of time you're going to end up trading 2 for 2. You're going to trade one of your creatures in this card for 2 of their creatures.
And then Sheer Drop is destroy target tap creature. Referring to it as a defensive card kind of makes sense, but your opponent has to attack. If you're the ally deck, let's say that you're playing Eldrazi and you have white. You use this to kill one of their allies. That's fine. Or later in the game you make a creature and kill one of their allies. That's fine. If you're playing as the Eldrazi deck, they swing in with their big guy, you take the hit, you block the hit, you do whatever, right? your sheer drop gets rid of that. It gets rid of their main threat. So it's good in either of those decks. I don't think that in Limited there'll be a pure control deck that tries to that doesn't try to answer creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's less good in the ally deck because you're trying to win before they're getting down, but it's fine.
Yeah, it also has Awaken, so it's not dead in the ally deck. This flying 2/2 for 3 seems weaker than in past sets, but since there's so little flying we've seen so far, it's probably fine.
I think it's also
It's not an ally. What's up with that?
I think that originally it was an ally, and they took the ally away because if there's too many allies, the ally deck is too strong. I think that's a balancing mechanic, and they took some of the premium cards and made them not allies intentionally.
Yeah, so I don't think you want to pick that too highly.
I don't think
Flyers
it's bad.
are good, but that one's a little overcosted. So
It's the normal cost.
if it turns out that flyers are just overcosted in the set, then you do want to pick that.
All right, so Stasis Snare, good removal.
Yes, good removal.
1 white flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. This is first pick, high removal. This is the kind of card that's going to see play in standard. I don't think that it's
Isn't this a
modern.
reprint of something except
Nope.
that it has flash?
No, we
Isn't
don't
there
have
another card that just exiles a creature for 3 mana?
There's Oblivion Ring, which exiles anything. There's nothing that's 1 white. This is the first one.
Oh, okay, so they're usually 2 and a white but don't have flash, but they exile a creature, right?
Yeah, or any non. We saw Detention Sphere. Like, this is not
Yeah,
Uncharted
Detention
Waters.
Sphere, I think, is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's 1 blue, exile target creature and all creatures with the same name. Or target permanent, non-land permanent, and all perms with the same name.
Yeah, okay.
But sure.
So this is basically just a flash version of...
Now, the Flash makes it way better in Limited, right?
Oh, certainly.
They try to enchant it, etc., etc. Stasis.
I mean, this
Snare.
is probably top pick. if
Oh
you
yeah,
play
this is
white.
probably the best removal in the set. Smite the Monstrous, 3 colors white, instant destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. I don't think this is terrible against the ally deck either. They don't have very many big targets for it, but there'll be a couple that we see here and there.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to take it. So I don't think you'll take it as highly as some of the other removal we've seen. but
No, and I think that you're gonna
You're going to want it if you're drafting the Eldrazi deck, though.
you're also going to sideboard this in and out matches.
A
If
lot.
I had 2 of these, I would probably run one, keep one in the sideboard, and adjust accordingly. Yeah, Crazy Eddie. Journey to Nowhere is here.
Yeah,
Journey
that's
to
the one
Nowhere
I was
is,
thinking of.
Journey to Nowhere is 1 white, though. It's much better. It's much
Yeah.
more powerful.
Yeah, it's 1 and a white.
Yeah, I would rather not pay the additional white mana and not
Yeah.
have the flash, but whatever. Alright, so let's look at the first good combat trick of this set. Tandem Tactics. 1 and a white, up to 2 target creatures, each gain +1/+2 until end of turn. You gain 2 life. The gain 2 life seems odd, except for there is a lot of... Or not a lot. There's a handful of effects that trigger when you gain the life, which makes the effect a little bit stronger should you have those cards. But +1/+2 on 2 creatures is 2/4 across multiple bodies, so that's okay. I don't think it's
That
great.
seems fine. I mean, you'll play it if you have to. The Stone Haven Medic is not an ally. So usually this type of card is completely unplayable.
Sometimes you bring them in defensively, right?
If they have a ton of what? 1/1s?
If they have X1 creatures or if they have 2/2s and you just need time. The gain 1 life is probably not relevant because you're probably not hoping to play that, but that effect can matter if you have the white or black life gain matters cards. If you're playing a white-based Eldrazi deck and your opponent plays a lot of creatures with 2 power, this is buying you time. It's not great, but it's serviceable.
We need to know if 3 is the magic number of toughness in this set. If it is, this is probably playable.
There's a solid amount of creatures with 2 power, 3 power, 2 toughness, and 3 toughness. So it's a little bit mixed bag. I think 4 is the magic number.
Okay.
This is a low pick, obviously.
Yeah,
by the
very
way.
low pick.
All right, last white card. Unified Front. 3 colorless, white. Converge. Converge is basically for each color you pay, you get more. Put a 1/1 core ally creature onto the battlefield for each color spent to play. This triggers a lot. If I have 4 different colors, I get 4 allies, I get 4 ally triggers. I don't care how many times I get first strike, but if it's a +1/+1+ counter or deals 1 damage to target creature player or other ally effects, that can be really strong.
It's a pretty neat card, but I don't think it's playable in any format.
I think it is playable at limited at 2. I would pay 4, and there was the time we had allies, there was an instant. There was 3 white, put 2 1/1 allies into play, and it was great. I think at sorcery, this will usually get you 2 allies, rarely get you 1, And then if you build your deck right, because the ally deck was probably 3 colors,
3 colors and limited?
I think you're running 2 colors and a light splash. Because there's a lot of mana fixing going on.
I don't think this is a very high pick for an ally deck.
No, I'd rather have allies that need the effects first. But let's look over white real quick and see if there's anything that's exciting with multiple ally triggers. And so far, it's none.
Yeah. So far, you get double vigilance, double first strike, or double lifelink, right?
None of that matters. Tapping 2 or 3 creatures is okay.
Yeah. If you're doing that, you're gonna win the game. That's great.
Yeah, you might not. I mean, it's just a free attack. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't bother picking that until super late. All right.
We'll keep going.
You can pick whatever you want. I'm playing Eldrazi every time.
All right. So there's one thing to notice here. There's no Eldrazi in white, which means we talked a little bit. You kept hearing me say this, like playing white Eldrazi deck, etc. There's no Devoid in white. There is a colorless matters theme. You are going to be hard pressed to play without white. Doesn't mean you can't pair it with white. It just means you're kind of losing a little.
My allied Eldrazi clearly is what's going to win the game.
Yeah. For Converge, I do not pick Converge cards highly. I would not pick up Unified Front. When you pick Unified Front, imagine it as 4 get 2/1/1 white ally creatures. That is consistently what it will be. If your deck ends up changing, let's say we're in pack 3 and I'm, running a 2-color ally deck with a really solid splash, well, now this is 4 get 3/1/1 allies and ally triggers. That might be a little bit more exciting. But you always want to start with your Converge cards at 2. Packs 2 and 3 will kind of inform you if it's 3 or 4. I mean, I don't think 4 colors will be supportable, but we'll have to go through the set to see. And remember, there will be a second block that comes with this, and there might be a bunch of mana fixing that makes you heavily influenced to play more colors coming together.
Yeah, I mean, there are the man lands, as they call them.
Those are rares when we're with it. We need commons on commons. But let's talk about adverse conditions. 3 colorless and a blue, instant, devoid. Tap 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during the control's next untap step. That is a 3 mana effect. Not a particularly good one. It's better offensively. It's okay defensively.
And it makes you an Eldrazi spawn.
It makes
Scion.
It makes
They're
you
not
a Scion.
spawns anymore.
Yep, it's a Scion. I think that that's great. The Scion is the part that makes me excited, and that you're buying for your Eldrazi deck, which you would not normally play this in defensively. It's giving you another mana the next turn. Is it the best turn 4 play? No, but I mean, how often do you have more than 2 creatures on turn 4 anyway?
So I'm thinking this is perfect if you're building an Eldrazi deck. And I'm not going to answer your question, Daniel, because it's funnier this way. But if you tap 2 allies and they don't untap for another turn and you accelerate yourself, that seems perfect for what you're trying to do.
If you're trying to beat down on the other deck too, it's good.
I hadn't even thought about that. That seems like a very high pick.
Yeah, Crazy Eddie for constructed Converge is a much stronger ability. Like we talked at the beginning of the stream, with this 16 fetch land, 15 fetch land, multiple dual land ones, you will be solidly in 3 colors, or 3 colors with a free splash, or 2 colors with 2 very light splashes that are easy. So this will be excellent mana. And as far as constructed is going, if you want to build a Converge deck, it is doable and you can play it. I mean, how hard is it?
Well, it'll probably be Converge allies, right?
I don't know. It depends on the things.
That sounds like a not fun deck to play.
I don't know the constructed decks that will pop up per se. We'd have to look at all the cards together, etc., etc.
Well, we're not pros, so I'm not going to build decks for...
But if you see a Converge card that looks powerful, you can assume that it will get tested and probably be decent.
Yep.
Yeah, this will be the best man in the world.
Will be wonderful.
It'll literally be the best man in standard that ever existed.
You think?
There's no point where we've had fetch lands and duels.
Didn't we? At one point, yeah, we had Ravnica block with the Onslaught reprint fetches.
Okay, well, it'll be just that good. It'll be equally good.
So,
except it'll have less life cost. Aggro will be worse.
Yeah. Which is
whatever. All right, Anticipate. It's back. Colorless blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one in your hand. The rest in your bottom. You can play it in constructed. It's fine. Unlimited. It's a fine card too. You don't want too many cards that don't affect the board.
But I think this is about the right power level for.
Yeah, you're gonna run
this type of effect.
You run 2, whatever. Mana in Crazy Eddie is correct in that mana during Lorem was great, but it was mostly good for control decks. It was a little bit worse for aggro decks.
They never had fetches, and
I think they were a block separate. right, so let's go on to
Oh.
Benefic Infiltrator. I love this card, by the way. I think this is the best ingest card, and ingest cards are going to give you an exile off the top of your opponent's deck. They're going to be the sort of oil that moves the processor-based engine. 2 colorless and a blue for a 1/4. Devoid ingest. It's colorless, and whenever it deals combat damage, you exile the top card of your opponent's library. It can't be blocked. The reason I like this card is 3 for a 1/4 is fine. That is a good defensive card. If I need to have ingest, I can have it whenever I want. If I want to put things on this creature to make it bigger, it becomes excellent. It's, I think, one of the best blue commons in the set, which is a little odd. But
it looks like artwork for slivers that just never got used.
Yeah, sea slivers. But yeah, I think this is going to be the backbone of a lot of really good processor-based decks.
I'm just laughing so hard because Crazy Eddie pointed out that fetches and shocks were never in standard. I guess I've just played too much modern.
Probably. Yeah,
I don't remember that.
We're going to have some great mana. You guys get ready for this
wonderful.
level. Crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Go play modern. It's way more fun.
So let's look at a Converge card that I think is really bad. Brilliant Spectrum. 3 colors and a blue. Converge. Draw X cards, where X is the number of colors spent. Then discard 2. It's a sorcery. I'm sure they started without the discard and they found it too powerful maybe for Constructed. In Constructed, would you pay 4 to draw 4?
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, that'd probably
now,
be too
I will say that 4C is what? Draw... It's what? Scry 4, draw 2 or something?
Yeah.
So, better than this card. 4C's also 4. And a sorcery. So...
Yeah, so I don't think Brilliant Spectrum is something you're going to often play. You might occasionally, but the thing is, you have to be getting 3 colors for this even to approach being decent. I just don't think it's making it unlimited for the most part.
The Cloud Manta is a 3/2 flying for 4. I mean, that seems fine. I think it's funny that it's a fish. Been better as a fish ally, but...
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to ally with some fish, just saying.
Yeah, I read it as Cloud Mantra first, and I was a little confused, like a mantra, like a chant, but, you know.
It's clearly not that, if you look at the picture.
Yeah.
Yours is way funnier, though.
What card just does what? Well, we just talked about the Benefic Infiltrator, which is the 1/4. In Standard, I mean, I don't think Brilliant Spectrum is going to make it. I think in Constructed, it has more of a chance, but I don't think it's significant there either. We go on to Clutch of Currents. 1 sorcery, return target creature to its owner's hand, awaken 3 for 4 and a blue. I think that this card is fine. Normally this card doesn't shine, but there are 2 important scenarios. And the first one is you're playing allies. You're playing blue, and your opponent drops their big creature that they sacrifice some scions to and all that stuff. Tempo means a lot more when your opponent has to ramp into it, and they're using temporary mana sources like scions. And the fact that you can punish them for their temporary mana sources is great. Late in the game, it can come with a 3/3 as well. In your more controlling kind of defensive Eldrazi decks, I'm not sure that bouncing an ally is going to help quite as much. I don't think this card's great, but I do think it's playable, and usually this card's not.
It's sad that it's a sorcery. I would love to ruin someone's day at instant speed.
Yeah.
But, oh well.
Coastal Discovery. Tell us about this.
So, draw 2 cards for 4 mana. It's not terrible. The Awaken ability gives a little more reach. This seems fine as a 1/of to me.
Are you talking about in Standard or Constructed?
Oh, for draft or sealed.
I would probably play 1 or 2 of these. The fact that just late you can pay 6 to get a 4/4 and draw 2 cards is awesome. Like, that's a 3 for 1.
That's pretty good.
I think that this is really, really good. Brad is right that you can't pick up too many of these, but I'll give you a hint, you're not going to see too many of these.
And the biggest problem with it being 6 mana to awaken, you're probably going to do this on 6 mana, so you're going to get a tapped 4/4.
And I mean, in another fairness part to this, usually the awaken cards are using all of your mana, but one of the things about drawing cards is that you have extra mana available to play them. So they can push this awaken card a little bit more, because if, let's say you awaken the card, well, now you don't have that mana to play the cards you just drew, which is an interesting kind of position. This is a bad Mole Drifter, which is an awesome card.
And did they make any awaken cards that are instant? Because I don't think they did.
We'll go back and look at that.
I don't believe they did.
They may not. They might have just avoided that controversy. One thing I do want to point out, they made it so that all of the lands have haste with this ability, and it's so that you don't accidentally pick the bad land, like the land that just can't play. Like, it's a small thing that really doesn't make that much difference.
Well, it will on MTGO, because it's impossible to tell an empty.
But yeah, it's just this really nice convenience thing for you to make sure you don't actually mix up. You can awaken a land that has already been awakened. It will just put more counters on that and re-give it haste. So if you double awaken a land you're using this, you'll have 8 1/1 counters on it. You can also awaken the man lands, and they will permanently have counters and permanently be a creature. When you activate their ability, they'll gain the additional stats and that ability, whatever abilities go with it.
Yep. Oh, and I love that they left them colorless, all the awakened lands.
Yeah, Eddie, Careful Consideration was a lot more powerful of a card with the instant speed ability. But it's a decent comparison. It's just one was mono blue, one's multicolor. I expect more out of my multicolor cards.
Target creature can't be blocked this turn.
It's 2 for...
this is that cycle of cards that are...
Yeah. Merfolk, Scout, Ally. It's 2 for 2/1. I'm happy with that in both of my decks. It goes good in the ally deck because it's an ally, but also I would be happy to sit in the Eldrazi deck, being able to get my guy through and have an early blocker.
I'm looking forward to playing this one in the Eldrazi deck.
I think it's one of the better allies in blue overall. Will you tell us about the cruiser?
Okay, so this is another processor effect. This one puts a card from exile into the graveyard and taps a creature.
Now you can do this whenever you pay colorless and a blue. It's a 4 for a 3/3, and it's devoid. It's not great, but if you don't have a lot of other processor effects, but you do have multiple ways to put cards into exile, it's going to do alright work with you. Not a high pick, but a fine card.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
You know what I'm excited about? Dampening Pulse. It's a little expensive. 4 in the blue for an enchantment. Creatures your opponent control get -1/-0.
That is so good if you're building the Eldrazi deck.
It's good for the Eldrazi deck, and it's good against the Eldrazi deck because the allies...
Oh, that's going to be a hot pick right there.
Don't have a lot. Now, you can't run a ton of cards like this.
But it's an uncommon, so you're probably only going to see one per draft. Maybe 2, but
I would run
one.
I would run both, though.
I would run 2 if I could get 2, but you're probably not getting 2.
It cuts off the Scions. It makes a lot of things a lot more manageable. The one deck that this is not good against is the Landfall deck, which we'll see a little bit later, that's based in green.
Oh, I like this Dispel, and the reason is the artwork is awesome.
Yeah.
This is a reprint. This is actually... Dispel is played in Modern.
Yeah, it's great.
So I think this one is something you should pick up in foil.
Yeah, if you like it.
So,
all right, let's look at Drowner of Hope. 5 colors blue for a 5/5. Now, I talked about this a few weeks ago about how they could have altered it, how it was probably a card that went from uncommon to rare. But what we've got here on the surface is a 5/5 for 6, devoid. When it comes into the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 Scions. You can sacrifice a Scion and tap target creature. That is a powerful effect. If you could play this on turn 6 or something like that, let's say you have just a few more Scions, you no longer chump block with your Scions, you just prevent your opponent from ever attacking with important creatures with your Scions. You can also get through damage in if you want later in the game, etc., etc. And it's a 5/5 body. It's a solid card. I don't think it's playable in Constructed. I think it's an excellent card in Limited. Can you tell us about the Sky Spawner?
Back to the Drowner of Hope real quick. This is going to be wonderful if you're building the Eldrazi deck.
It's wonderful in any deck.
I think it might be okay to play in your constructed Eldrazi deck, because later in the game, I don't think you're going to have much of a use for your Scions. So,
all right. So let's talk about Eldrazi Spawner.
All right. So this one is 3 mana and devoid and has flying. So this is my favorite flying card so far already, just because it's power to toughness to cost ratio. It also gives you a Scion when it enters the battlefield. This seems like the absolute best flyer we've seen yet.
It's probably the best common we've seen. And Crazy Eddie is right there with us. But one of the reasons is this fits in lots of different decks. So this is going to be a hard common to come by. In your ally deck, you will run this because 3 for a 2/1 that gives you another body that can use to ramp or attack is great. In your Eldrazi deck, having 2 bodies to kill 2 things or 1 to kill something and to ramp is great. It's a great offensive card. It's a great defensive card. It's a good rate. This is the kind of common that you're just not going to see go around. This is your better version of Gear per Gear Crafter. Just think about Gear per Gear Crafter. Now imagine it was better.
Yeah. That's pretty accurate, yeah.
This card really looks like it should be an uncommon. Like, that's where I'm at.
I mean, man.
Alright. Exert Influence. 4 blue, sorcery, converge, gain control of target creature if its power is equal to or less than the number of colors. So you can get a 5/5 with it, but in Limited, you're usually getting a 3 or a 4, which seems fine, except for you're paying mana and you're going down, And then also, like, you have to have those colors. You do gain it permanently. They can't disenchant it.
Yeah, I
just don't
like
think
that it's not an enchantment. This would suck as an enchantment. Also, it would be weird mechanically. But I don't think it's as good as previous cards that did about the same thing.
I don't think it's playable in limited or constructed.
Yeah, I don't think it's playable in any format, actually.
All right, I'm going to grab some more water. You want to tell us about the Guardian of Tazim?
Alright, so this is the 5 mana 4/5 flying. I'm already liking it for its ability to fly. This one is the landfall for islands. It taps target creature and opponent controls, and it doesn't untap to the next controller's untap if it's an island. This seems decent. I don't know if this will actually make it into standard. What do you think, Daniel?
I don't think it's quite there. These kind of effects, these aggressive-oriented or defensive-oriented creatures, it's just... Dice removal is the words that are legitimate and constructed and not for limited.
Yeah.
It just needs more.
That's true. And this is not as good as the Ojitai, or whatever, the white-blue one. White-blue dragon. So. Alright, then we've got the Tide Caller. Return target card with Awaken from your graveyard to your hand.
Cards you have control flying. This is the kind of card that it's excellent and limited. I don't think it's there for constructed. It might be just because you can get a card back, but I don't think you're going to run that many Awaken cards. But 3 for a 2/3 is great. 3 for a 2/3 ally, it's fine. 3 for a 2/3 ally that sometimes gets you a card back is really good. Yeah. And 3 for a 2/3 ally that sometimes plays well with your lands is fine.
I think this is a great card for the format, really. It goes into so many different decks. It's an uncommon, so you're going to see maybe one of them. It's fine.
Alright, Horribly Awry.
Devoid. Counter target spell with converted mana costs 4 or less. If that spell is countered, exile it instead of putting it in the graveyard. This seems fine.
It only stops creatures, but this is the kind of card you want in your Eldrazi deck to stop the cheaper decks. It gives you something to process, to get caught back up on, all these things. That said, I'm not going to be running too many of these. It doesn't stop big Eldrazi, so...
So, this might make it into Modern or
why would you play
Legacy.
This? Why would you play this over Remove Soul, other than the Exile?
Well, it's going to hit most of the things you're going to be casting against anyway.
Creature spells. This is only creature spells.
That's true, but a lot of times you're removing creatures in Modern.
Yeah, but they already have Remove Soul and that card is not played.
That's true.
Yeah, I just don't think it's there. In Standard, this does get rid of Death Risk from After and a couple other cards permanently, so it might see some play there.
That's pretty cool.
But Alright, so we did see the argument for one of the best blue commons. I think this is our second best. Incubator Drone. 3 colorless blue for a 2/3 void. You get a spawn token. So it's 4 mana to give 3/4 power across 2 bodies, and you can sacrifice to gain extra stuff.
That's pretty good.
As a 2/3, it stops a lot, or it trades with most of the allies.
It does.
And you get a ramp card. I'm happy with that.
It's looking like blue is going to be a really good card to pair with Eldrazi.
I think blue is the main color.
So,
but we have Mist Intruder here, making us sad. It's 1 blue, 1/2 devoid, flying ingest. I'm just saying, Stormcrow did need an update. This card is not good enough from Stormcrow to beat the Stormcrow.
No.
Yeah.
That is kind of sad.
So this is Stormcrow Eldrazi. Let's have a moment of silence for Stormcrow. If you guys don't know, Stormcrow's an old joke in Magic about being one of the great cards. It's just 1 blue for 1/2, just like this card, except for this has devoid and flying and ingest. Alright, so let's see something that's more exciting. Merc Strider. 3 colors, blue, 3/2, devoid. When it enters the battlefield, you may process a card. We're just going to say process from now on. And if you do, return target creature to its owner's hand. How do you feel about that?
It's pretty good. I like that one.
Yeah.
I don't know how often you're going to hit your process on turn 4.
Depends. Some of the cards we saw had early ingest abilities, some didn't. But yeah, it keeps that tempo game off. But
it's real sad that it's 4 mana to basically do what most of the 4 mana spells previously have done, right?
Yeah, but this is a 3/2. I mean, you're getting extra power.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, Oracle of Dust. It's devoid, and put a card an opponent owns from exile to that player's graveyard, and you get to loot. Draw a card, discard a card. And so it's a 3/5 for 5, which is respectable, and the looting ability is great. So this seems completely playable, and it's also a common, so you'll probably have at least one in your deck.
We saw the other common processor as well. We've got these processors which are common, which are less, or sorry, other common processor, which are not into the battlefield effects. They're timed effects. You can pay mana. You can do it. And they're not great, but the fact of the matter is, if you don't have anything else to do with those exile cards, they're plenty serviceable.
Yeah, they're fine.
All right. So why don't you tell us about Part the Water Veil?
So this card is worse than most of its counterparts. Take an extra turn for 6, or for the grand total of 9, you get a 6/6 and take another turn, which is kind of cool. But I think for my 9 mana, I'll be wanting to play Eldrazi. Yeah, I'm not gonna scoff at it. If I get it in my sealed pool, I'll play it. But assuming I'm playing blue, I'll play it.
I don't know if I will. Taking extra turns not even that good in limited. It's not a good ability.
Well, I think you're going to be getting to 9 mana in sealed, and that's the only reason I play it, because I don't want to play it for 6.
Yeah, I mean 6/6 for 6, pay 3, draw an extra turn card is the card you want to play, but because that's what Awaken is. But this is just, they don't make good draw card or extra. They don't make extra good time locks anymore. I don't blame them. Time lock is a little bit kind of a strong ability.
Yeah, my favorite one was the coin flip one, actually.
Tell us about Prism Array.
Alright, so this one is 5 mana, so you can converge it for all 5 colors. And you get a crystal counter for each color, and you remove a crystal counter to tap a creature. That seems fine, but not something that's probably going to get played. The Scry 3 for 1 of each color mana is pretty neat. You'll probably want a full one for your 5-color EDH deck of Funness.
If there's a constructed 5-color deck, would you play this? Let's say it's a 5-color deck. Plays all 5 colors. Would you play
if there's a constructed 5-color deck, you're probably playing this. You may even play 2 of them.
They do tap down more things. In limited, if for some reason you're running a 3-color deck and you have the opportunity to splash 2 other colors easily, if you can get 5 colors, you would. But you're not knowing how that happens. So this is normally not playable.
I don't think this will see much play. It'll be a fringe deck in standard.
You'll know if you're playing. You'll know if you're picking this card. Pack 3. All right. So tell us about Royal Mage's Trick.
So Royal Mage's Trick lets you converge again. And this one's a 4 cost, so you could converge for 4, and it gives -X/-0 and draws you a card. It seems okay because it's all of their creatures and it is an instant.
And you only have to have 2. When you pay 4 to give your opponent's creatures -2/-0,
and draw
a card,
that's
that
pretty
card's
good.
playable. That's a playable card.
Yep.
And this is a playable card because it's playable at 2. At 3, it's exciting, but at 2, it's fine.
Yep. 2 different colors makes this fine. 4 different colors makes this crazy good.
Yeah, you won't only have that, but you will have 3 a decent amount of time.
So the retreat. This is the cycle, right, that you were talking about.
I like Brad hate.
Yeah, so this one's 1 less mana. That's a plus in its favor. So this one's tap or untap target creature. That's really cool. Or scry 1. I think this one is fringe playable. Now, it's probably only fringe playable in like a standard control deck, though.
I think in limited. I'm talking about limited. In limited, I think they're both playable. I don't know. This is interesting because the fetch lands make this one much better because you can fetch to stop attackers in constructed, and you can fetch when you don't want to stop attackers to scry, and I think that's true. In limited, it's a little more aggressive oriented for the tapping. You won't usually have fetch effects. There is Evolving Wilds, which helps. But usually it's just an offensive tap. But the scrying is also fine, trying to get you one.
It's neat. I still don't think I want to devote a slot in my sealed pool or in my draft pool for this card.
I would definitely play it in aggressive decks because then my lands can tap down my opponent's cards, and then later, or if they don't have things to tap down, I can scry to more gas. In my controlling deck, I don't know if I want to pay 3 to make all my lands have scry 1.
No, I don't think so.
What about Ruination Guide? And this goes into the aggressive Eldrazi deck.
So this is a Devoid Ingest. That's pretty cool. And this is other colorless creatures you control get +1/+7. Not sure why it doesn't give itself the ability.
Just because
would it be too good?
Yeah, they just wanted to be a 3/2 base. So this makes your spawns 2/1s, which is good offensively or defensively.
That's really awesome.
And it is 3 for a 3/2. It has ingest, but your opponent's normally going to block this.
So I think this is perfectly playable in basically any deck. I mean, it's a 3/2 for 3.
Yep.
If you happen to get the other colorless creatures close, that's fine.
Yeah. So Crazy Eddie was mentioning on the Royal Mage's trick. Now I will say it isn't Soul Battle Cruiser. I think that they're really pushing these ally decks. So sometimes your Royal Mage's trick will be good. There's a lot of cards like Royal Mage's trick and card that deals specifically with smaller power creatures, and other cards that deal specifically with big creatures like Smite the Monstrous.
Mm-hmm.
Those cards you're going to run one of, even if you have two of them, or you're going to run less than all of them usually, and you'll pull more or less in from your sideboard, right? Against my ally deck, the Awakening or Smite the Monstresses are coming out, and in go the Royal Mage's tricks, and vice versa for Eldrazi.
Yeah, it's really weird because like when you register your pool, that's how you register it. But when you play it a pre-release, you can just sideboard whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not good, but you can.
Tell us about Rush of Ice.
So, Rush of Ice, 1 blue, tap target creature. It doesn't untap during the next untap step, and it can awaken for 5. 5 mana, awaken 3.
Yep, it's the worst version of the bounce one. I think that they printed both of these because they needed the effects, though. You would imagine...
They needed more awaken spells, you mean?
They needed more slowdown spells, and I'm not sure for which deck right now, but there's a reason both these. Usually we have one or the other, but we have both, so we'll see.
And they both awaken for the same, right?
That one awakens for 5 for 3, awaken 3 for 5, and another one was scoop doo boop boop. Let's go up here. Exactly the same. You
exactly
are correct.
the same. Okay, and they're both sorceries.
Yeah, because they would be very, very strong. I think that you're correct in that all awakens are sorceries.
So
Salvage Drone.
Oh, there's an instant awaken spell, but it's a counter spell.
One for a 1/1 devoid ingest. When it dies, draw a card, discard a card. I don't think that's good. I don't think you want it. It just doesn't do enough. If your opponent was like playing sort of weird all-in attack with Scion and a drones, maybe, but not really. Let's ignore that. Scatter the Winds.
So I like that it's a counter spell with awaken. That's pretty cool.
Does a counter spell with awaken mean a lot in constructed?
No.
Okay, so
not really.
It's
in fact, I don't even think you're going to be able to do this in modern.
Okay, so it's fine in limited. You might see some play in standard. It's good.
It has a really cool picture.
Yeah, this is also only fine in limited. This isn't amazing. You don't want to run that many counter spells. Often you just counter whoever your opponent plays off the top of the deck. Counter spells are better in this set because they are playing bigger creatures.
Yeah.
Spell Shrivel. 3. 2 colors in blue, devoid. Counter target spell unless its controller plays 4. If that spell is countered this way, exile it, so put it into its opponent's graveyard. I think this is a good card for the processor deck to maybe want 1 or 2 of, in that it stops a threat, but more importantly, it gives you a setup for your processor. I'm not sure if it's going to make it in constructed just because it's 3 mana for a spell.
Yeah, I mean, for limited, I think I'd rather play this than the previous counter spell just because that one's double blue.
You're probably right.
And you're probably, I mean, I might be underestimating how often you'll awaken this, because if you're playing against an Eldrazi deck, then you may not need to counter anything until you get 6 mana.
That's true. And I mean, sometimes you just draw it late and you just have 6 mana.
I mean, and it's a rare, so you're not going to see it much. So this one you'll see a lot.
So let's say an interesting one. Tide Drifter. 1 in blue, 0/5, devoid. Other colorless creatures you control get +1 +1. It's also interesting that this is a drone that doesn't make creatures.
That is really weird.
Anyway,
it powers up creatures? It's kind of drone-like.
Your Scions become 1/2s, which I don't think matters as much. If somehow you get 2 and they become 1/3s, that's significant, but I think this one's a lot less important than the attack one. You can get it if you want it, probably.
It's gonna probably.
Why don't you tell us about Tightening Coils?
So this one just gives a creature -6/-0 and loses them flying.
This is a good answer to your opponent's Eldrazi.
Yep, I think you're going to take these often.
Now, I will say, your big Eldrazi still have power and toughness after this. There's some beefy dudes.
But I think you're going to take this anytime you see one. This is probably Blue's best removal spell.
There's the tricky part that goes with this as well, in that this is kind of not super against the ally decks, because they still get the ally triggers.
That's true, but nerfing one of their creatures for 2 mana so that it doesn't attack, that's probably fine. That's probably the best you can expect for 1 card.
So look, Ugin's Insight is playable in constructed. Limited. Let's talk about constructed.
So for constructed, you've got the Scry-X, and then highest mana cost among permanents you control, then draw 3 for 5 mana at sorcery speed. This will probably make it into standard. It seems fine.
So imagine a world where you have an Ugin out and you play Ugin's Insight. Scry 8, draw 3. How do you feel about that?
That's pretty good.
All right, now let's imagine that you have a 4 drop that you're playing the 4 colors that I talked about, and you're playing.
Ugin's actually at 10, but whatever. It's mana cost.
Ugin costs 8.
Cost 8?
You're thinking of Ulamog.
Ulamog. Okay, he's better.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, even if you have a 4, let's say you have a Siege Rhino, and you play your Ugin's Insight the next turn because you have perfect mana, and you get 4. Scry 4, draw 3.
That's pretty good.
Okay, so we're happy.
I mean,
all the way
you're probably playing this in standard.
Yeah, I think you're happy with this all the way down to, even if you don't get a Scry, it's fine. Drawing 3 for 5 is not exciting.
Well, that's true. If you have no creatures, you still draw 3 cards.
Yeah. Ulamog's Reclaimer.
Alright, so this one is devoid, and it reclaims to exile. Let's see, what does it do? Return target instant sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, okay.
So processing, you get instant sorcery.
It's a whatchamacallit.
It's like a bad possessed scab. It's like a bad Archaeomancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's 5 for a 2/5, which is better stats wise. So, you know, hopefully the instant sorcery you played exiled one of their cards too. So it's fine. I don't think this is an exciting processor, but I think you're mostly playing this for the body than you are getting the stuff back.
Yep, it'll probably make it until the Eldrazi deck that Brad's building.
So let's say the fun card, Wave Wing Elemental. Wave Wing Elemental sounds like a ride that you go on at a water park. Like if someone said, Point Mallow now opening the Wave Wing Elemental, would you be excited to ride the Wave Wing Elemental?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us about the Wave Wing Elemental.
So this is 6 mana, 3/4 with flying, and it also gets +2/+2 like that other card we had with landfall. It seems fine.
It's
6
great.
is a lot for a 3/4, but the landfall really beefs it up. So.
Oh yeah, it's 6 for a 5/6 attacking. Like that's gonna end the game real quick.
So
let's look at the.
I don't know how you managed to make that pop up all the time.
I'm terrible at everything. So I think this is one of the really strong blue uncommons. It's also not an ally because of the power level of the card means that they don't want it to be an ally in addition. They just want it to be strong. 3 blue for a 4/3 flyer. How do you feel about that card?
So this is the second best flyer in the set.
All right, 3 blue for a 4/3 flyer. Whenever it deals combat damage, play a player scry 2.
That one's amazing.
Scry 2
dies to removal.
Sure. Yeah, we're not going to play it constructed, but in limited,
dies to removal.
In limited,
it's great. It's wonderful. Draft it.
Scry 2 is almost like drawing a card.
Yep. Draft it.
All right,
Draft it a lot.
Is back.
Sacrifice a creature to draw 2 cards. This seems fine.
You'll play it in limited just because it gets around removal spells and you can turn your scions into cards, but
yeah,
it's not constructed.
There's plenty of crap to sacrifice in this set that you don't care about.
Speaking of sacrificing crap, Bone Splinters is back, so you can sacrifice your scions to kill something.
That's
also
great.
good.
You can also sacrifice your crappy allies to kill an Eldrazi.
Yep. Blood Bond Vampire, 2 black for a 3/3. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter, so that life gain matters. You can have a lot of life gain triggers in the black-white deck, by the way. So this could be a 5 or a 6 very quickly. This could grow very quickly on the turn you play. There are allies that have triggers just based on that. There are allies that have at the beginning of the upkeep triggers. This little lady can grow quite big quite quickly. I do want to point out that Altar's Reap is okay. You will run 1, maybe 2. I wouldn't run more than that even with Scions. Bone and Splinters, I will run any amount I can get my hands on because either I'm playing Scions and I need to kill allies with my Scions, or I'm playing allies and I need to kill other things with my
basically anything they play, you just need to kill them by sacrificing your allies.
Bone Splinters is pretty high up there.
Yep.
How do you feel about Carrier Thrall?
Alright, so this one is, when it dies, put a 1/1 Scion into play. That seems amazing.
It's 2, 1 for 2.
And look at that, I can sacrifice this guy and get another guy to sacrifice.
So we're going to do a little flavor bit here. The reason that it's not an ally is that some of the vampires decided to be thralls for the Eldrazi. And they don't spare them.
Cool story, bro.
Turns out terribly because the Eldrazi's don't care about you and want to use your body to make babies.
Huh.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
So this does usually trade with another creature and then gives you some stuff on there. Complete disregard.
So you're saying this thing is a carrier for an Eldrazi Scion?
Yeah, it's
That's
almost like
too much flavor for this cast, Daniel.
Complete disregard. 2 black for an instant. Exile target creature with power 3 less.
So this is not a super high pick, I don't think.
I think you're wrong.
How many creatures with power 3 or less?
Almost all of the allies.
Okay.
And most of the original most of the spawn creating creatures as well.
Okay, so you think this is a super hot pick?
I think you pick it either way. I think that this card, in this set, if Reeve Soul and this card were in the same spot, the sorcery version that kills that, you'd probably pick up Complete Disregard just to go through processors.
Okay, so the problem with this is that late game, if you're playing against Eldrazi or something, then it's dead, and so you need to side it out in that case.
Against the big Eldrazi deck, it's a bad card against their biggest creatures, but remember, they have a lot of creatures with 3. You know, we saw those 3/5s. Etc.
Okay.
This gets rid of a 3/5.
So you're thinking this is one of the best removals in the set, and I'm just wrong.
See,
it's good that we're both here.
And I think that one of the big things is the decks with processors really want this because it kills those early cards, whether you're playing against other Eldrazi decks or allies, and then you have fodder to process.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on.
Culling Drone.
So this is Devoid Ingest 2/2 for 2. Seems playable.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Defiant Bloodlord, 7 mana, 4/5. So this must be a 7 mana, 4/5 cycle, right?
Yeah.
With flying. Whenever you gain life, target opponent lose that much life. That seems amazing. I would draft this.
It's okay. 7 mana for a 4/5 flying. I mean, you don't gain that much life.
Yeah, but all the 4/5 flyers are 7 mana. So.
Yeah. I mean, you can play it.
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean,
it's probably not making it into standard or.
If I opened a pack with Defiant Bloodlord and Complete Disregard, I'm probably gonna start with the Complete Disregard just because it's gonna go into more decks. You want to be getting something out of this ability for it to be exciting.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about the Dominator Drone?
So this one's also Devoid and Ingest, and when it enters the battlefield, if you control another colorless creature, each opponent loses 2 life. That seems great for a 3 mana spell. Yeah. You might get a little more value out of it later. You might actually get it on 3rd turn.
3 for a 3/2 is fine, or 3 for a 3/2 that drains 2 is fine.
Yep, both of which are fine. The Ingest ability might mean something.
It does. It incentivizes your opponent to block. Your opponent does not want you to have cards to process. Right?
That's true.
We talked about that 4 mana card that bounces something. If you didn't process, but let's say that I played my 2/2 Ingest guy and hit you, and you're like, I don't want to trade. And then I played my Dominator Drone, you lost 2 life, I swung again, And then turn 4 comes, I bounce your guy. It's because you didn't make that block. Instead of trading him, you lost that tempo.
Alright, so Demon's Grasp is -5 for 5, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think every once in a while you play that enchantment that's like -4, -2 for 4.
Yeah.
So this is much better.
They can also print cards like this because they have cards that don't die to it. This doesn't kill your Eldrazi.
Yep.
That said, don't be afraid to attack your 3/3 into their thing and call them on that block, and they block you just Demon's Grasp post-combat and 2 for 1 yourself to kill their Eldrazi.
Worth it.
Definitely. Alright, so let's talk about Dutiful Return before we talk about really good cards.
Alright. Dutiful Return, 4 mana. Return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Probably not playing this, but
I like it.
You might play 1.
I like it better than normal because we have a bunch of creatures that make spawn. So this creates
a bunch of things that we can use to sacrifice those creatures, right?
And a bunch of allies that care about it. So Enter the Battlefield effects are more powerful, so Dutiful Return's more powerful. That said, I'm probably going to play 1 if I play any, but I'm more happy to play the first than I was before. Alright, so let's talk about, first of all, Drana is an A++++ in Limited. Let's talk about her for Constructed. Tell her about us.
Alright, so Flying First Strike is amazing. That's the first 2 abilities on, Vampire? What was the one that's the same mana cost?
It's not the first 2 abilities on Vampire Hexmage. No.
Yeah.
No, we don't have any Flying First Strike.
Flying First Strike Death Touch.
No, that was Lifelink Flying Death Touch.
Oh, it was Lifelink Flying Death Touch. Okay.
Anyway.
What card is that?
Do you think of Vampire Nighthawk?
Vampire Nighthawk, which is an excellent card and is an uncommon. So this one, Flying First Strike, and then when it deals combat damage to a player, 1/1 counter on each attacking creature you control.
So let's say I'm attacking with her and 2 2/2s.
Guess what?
2 damage to you.
First Strike.
And they do 3. So it's nice.
And then she also gets her counter for next turn to make her even harder to block.
And she's 1 black. Yeah. Now, constructed-wise, does she have a home?
Oh, so I think she'll make it into Standard.
Alright.
She's a Vampire Ally, which is uncommon. She goes in Vampire decks. She goes in Ally decks. People love their Vampire decks.
Let's talk about Constructed. Because, okay, example. Phyrexian Obliterator. You remember the card?
Mm-hmm.
When you saw the card, did you guarantee it had a home in your mind?
No.
I thought it did. Because how powerful was the card? 4 for a 5/5, your opponent had to sacrifice stuff, right? That seemed ridiculous. What was the problem with the card? Didn't have a home. We didn't have a black deck. Do we have a black deck for her? Does this lady have a home?
Do we?
I don't think we know. That's the problem. Like, is she powerful? Definitely.
But
is she
there's no
harmless?
well, so you could theoretically just throw her into an Abzan deck, right? But what are you taking out? I don't know.
And I mean, like, is she fitting in with Abzan? I mean, like, she needs to hit. If she doesn't hit, you're not getting anything. So we'll see.
That's true.
She's powerful.
So is Liliana getting any play? Because if Liliana's getting play, she goes in the deck with her.
She does. I'm not sure. All right, let's talk about... First of all, let's talk about a black elemental that's weird, and Zendikar hates the Eldrazi's because we get black elementals. 4 black for 3/2 minutes. Must be blocked by 2 creatures. Landfall, it gets +2/+2, so it becomes a 5/4. Serviceable. Interesting card. Grave Birthing. 2 colorless black, instant devoid. Target opponent exiles a card from their graveyard. You get a Scion. Draw a card. Usually this effect would not be good. Usually this effect's not good enough. But here, it's doing what we want. We paid 3 mana to cycle a card and to get a token and to get a processing effect. This is an enabler. This is only going into the processing decks, and this is kind of exactly the kind of card you need to make it work.
Yep. I agree. Let's move on. Exile target creature and target land. That seems fine.
Seems great. I think it's super relevant.
Oh, yeah, take this.
Okay. So the reason this is super relevant is against the big decks. It gets rid of a big threat and it cripples their mana a little bit, so they can't cast another big threat. I'm excited about it. It's an uncommon. All right. Ghoul draws Overseer. 6 for a 3/4 flying. Landfall. You get +1/+0 for all your creatures, or all other creatures. If it's a swamp, they get +2/+0. It's strong. I think this one fits better in limited than most of the other ones, just because you're going to have a wider board and you're going to have more creatures take advantage of the effect. I think it's worse in constructed than all the other ones, although I don't think the other ones are really seeing that much constructed play, to be honest. This is the kind of card you want to start with and build around, obviously. Hagra Sharpshooter. 2 colors black for a 2/2. Human Assassin Ally. So again, the Overseer and the set none of these are allies, by the way. 3 for a 2/2 ally is fine. The problem is this 5-mana ability seems like it's going to be good. The -1 and -1 can turn around a lot of situations, etc., etc. She can pick off Eldrazi Scions, but I just don't think that she's quite there. If you need the ally, then she's an ally with upside, but I think I'd rather play a 2-mana 2/2 ally over a 5-mana ally, or sorry, a 3-mana ally with a 5-mana ability that's only okay. Now, Calistria Healer is 3 for a 1/2, and it's rally. Whenever you rally, whenever you play it or another ally, each opponent loses 1 life and you get 1. So it's going to drain 1. It's going to be getting you life, and the life gain trigger is more important for the effects than it is necessarily just for you adding life to your total life counter, because you probably only going to get 3 or 4 ally triggers out of this, but the fact that you might get 3 or 4 life gain triggers out of this, which means that your other creatures get their whenever you gain life abilities, is a big deal. And, you know, I don't think I'd play this card unless I had the life gain triggers to go with it, though. It is a Vampire Cleric ally. We're seeing a lot of weird allies. Everyone's coming together to just take down those crazy Eldrazi. Alright, Malakar Familiar. 2 black for 2/1 Flying Death Touch. I'm sold. I'll play this. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it. This is a really good card. I think this is one of the best life gain matters cards in the set. If you can ever get this up to like a 4/3, it's really hard to get through. This will kill your opponent's Eldrazi's. It's going to represent a lot of damage. Very powerful. Calistria Nightwatch. 4 for a 4/5. Serviceable. I'm already happy with that. Crazy Eddie is bringing up that... Oh, yeah, Nylord is right. You can, with the Grip of Desolation, get rid of an Awakened Land. It can be a 2-for-1. Oh, what? Oh, it's until end of turn. Oh, thank you for pointing that out, guys. Yeah, that's not a permanent counter. Okay, well, that card's still very good. It just went from one of the best uncommons to a completely great uncommon. Flying Death Touch is just great on its own right there. Allies is across a lot of colors. I think that ally decks are going to be 2-color decks with a splash. So I think that's what you're normally going to see. But allies are heavily in white, and when we get to red, you'll also see they're heavily in red. So your base colors usually will be white or red, and then you'll add on from there. All right. Calistria Nightwatch is 5 for a 4/5 for a Vampire Warrior ally. Whenever you gain life, it gains flying until the end of the turn. It's fine when you gain life and it becomes flying, gets extra damage and all, it's great. But 5 for a 4/5 is already a decent place to start out as far as black goes. Mindraker, 3 colorless black for 3/3 Devoid. Your Hill Giant. When it enters the battlefield, you may process a card. If you do, each opponent discards a card. It's okay. It's going to give you an early body to block with. Later on, hopefully you can get a card out of your opponent from their hand. Whether or not there's their last card's not really that big of a deal. Myers Malice. 3 black, target player or target opponent discards 2 cards. So this effect is usually a sideboard in effect. But here I'm happy to have one in. The reason it's a sideboard effect is, let's say that Brad has emptied his cards. He has no cards in hand, and it's turn 7. Well, I drew a dead card. Here, I drew a 6 mana 3/3. That's a bad card. It's a lot better than a dead card. So I can run one Myers Malice very happily without having to worry about it being completely dead.
You might hit some Eldrazi in their hand, too.
Yeah. If your opponent has 2 cards left, it's the best card. What's this? 4 mana. Your opponent gets 2 of their best cards, or 6 mana. Your opponent gets 2 of their best cards. You get a 3/3. All of that's exciting. But the floor on this card, and usually the floor on this card is draw a card, burn it up, and throw it into there, is a 3/3. That's a lot better.
Yep.
So you want to tell us about Nikara Assassin?
So when you gain life, it gains Death Touch until end of turn.
And
It seems fine.
3 for a 3/2 ally. That's fine. Yeah.
Yep. I would play that card.
Yeah.
So Onyxilus, I've heard a lot of people not too impressed with this. To me, it seems like you're going to want one of these if you're playing any sort of go mid-range deck.
So here's the thing about Onyxilus. Let's tell his abilities first. He's 3 black for 5 loyalty planeswalker. +1, you draw a card, you lose 1 life. -3, destroy target creature. -8, target opponent. Gets an emblem. Whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. The reason people aren't impressed with Onyxilus is he's not flashy. This is literally a templated, put in the most boring abilities on a planeswalker you can imagine.
It really is.
He's powerful.
He's super powerful. If you tick him up, he has 6 loyalty. There's very few things that could do that.
Yeah, and he's drawing you a card. He's a 2 for 1, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Every turn he lives, he's getting you a literal card.
Yep. And I mean, it could be in the form of destroying one of their cards.
Or drawing one of your cards.
Yeah.
The only time that you're sad that he's like bad is if you're almost dead and you're trying to +1 him. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're almost dead, there's probably creatures to kill.
Yep.
All right. Obviously, you're going to be playing this in limited.
Oh,
Planeswalkers
man,
are
I
ridiculous.
hope I open one of those. That'd be awesome.
But the painful truth is, it's 2 and a black for Sorcery Converge. Draw X cards, you lose X life for each color. I think this is fine in most formats. If you pay 3 mana to draw 2 cards, that's not great, but it's okay. And if you have a splash possible, you can pay 3 and draw 3, which is also fine.
Yeah, seems fine.
This also has the nice ability that if you don't have enough life, let's say you're at 2, you can play black to pay 1
You
draw.
can dial it in, yeah.
Which is interesting. You don't normally, but I do think that this card is not just a strict downgrade from Sign in Blood.
Alright, here we have the Black Retreat. This one landfalls to give you +1 and +0 and just 1 creature +1/+0 and Death Touch. Or each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1.
I think this is the worst of the bunch. It is 3. It is the most aggressive of the bunch because if you play a land, your opponent will not usually block your Death Touch creature.
That's true.
You want to know what's really cool though? Putting it on your armory or breaker, your breaker of armies, because all the creatures have to block it. Is Death Touch. You're probably gonna kill them all anyway. You have 10 power. But now you have 11.
That's cute and all, but probably not.
It
playing
doesn't
this.
matter. No, you're not playing this in a defensive deck. You're playing this, if at all, in an aggressive deck. I think it's the worst of the bunch.
Yeah, I don't think my Breaker of Armies needs no help. So.
How do you feel about Ruinous Path?
So I'm sad that it's not an instant because they didn't make book 1 apparently Awaken spell that was an instant.
Yeah.
So, this is the exact reprint of whatever the card is that I've played more times than I can
Hero's
count.
Downfall?
Yeah, Hero's Downfall. Except that it's a sorcery and it has Awaken. I don't think it's worth losing the instant ability to gain Awaken for.
We lost the card anyway. I think they wanted to make Planeswalkers a little bit more meaningful, and making them not killable at instant speed does that. So you can destroy target creature or Planeswalker for 3, but the Awaken is a lot bigger of an upside there. If you're playing it in an Abzan deck, it now represents a threat.
So I actually think that destroying a Planeswalker at sorcery speed is fine. Destroying a creature at instant speed is way more important.
Yep, and making creatures matter more. All right.
So, yeah, I mean, Awaken's a great ability to add if you're going to take away the instant, but I still like Hero's Downfall better.
So this is still going to be played and constructed, and you're going to be happy with it. We're all going to forget that we played Hero's Downfall and be like, yeah, this is what we play, of course.
No, we're going to be sad every time you can't do it at his instant speed, I think.
Fine.
Anyway, so Rising Miasma, isn't it?
Miasma?
Anyway, all creatures get -2 until end turn. I love effects like this.
At 4 mana, it's a little overcosted, and it's overcosted because you can pay 7 to get a 3/3. Now, remember your 3/3... Wait, nope.
Doesn't die.
Not
doesn't
only
die to your own effect.
No, not only does it doesn't die, it doesn't get smaller because it becomes that after that effect happens. Okay.
Oh, you're right.
Yep.
Because you play it, you do the things in the order it's written.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
So Rising Miasma seems solid.
Yep, seems fine.
Silent Skimmer. 4 for a 0/4 flying devoid. When it attacks, defending player loses 2 life. I don't like this card. You might say, well, it's a 2-power card and it has flying. It's not a 2-power card. It doesn't block well. It doesn't swing into attackers well. This is only for doing damage. Which, I mean, sure, if you're playing your aggressive deck, it's okay, but it's really bad defensively. It does get the damage through no matter what. Your opponent can't block it to prevent the damage, but it is not an excellent card. It is a very aggressive-oriented card, which is fine. Just don't mistake this for a 2-power card. How do you feel about Skitterskins?
So I like this one's power toughness for its converted mana cost.
What about that can't block part?
I mean, that's fine.
Okay, so in Limited, that is a big deal. Both of these cards are bad defensive cards. Skitterskin much worse.
Great attacking card, though.
Yes, but you're not always attacking, and when you're not attacking and you draw a Skitterskin, you are going to be in a bad spot. It is.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's a rough
You're
spot.
probably not going to want more than one, but if you're already, doing just fine, this guy's going to push you really far ahead.
Yeah, and
he probably is going to have Regenerate.
Yep, he probably will.
There's a lot of Devoid in this set. I look forward to playing this with my Eldrazi's.
I think that I'm going to avoid playing this with my Eldrazi's because I'm either looking to be playing big in-game creatures or aggressive curves that end at 4 or 5. So he's going to go in my ally deck, or ally-ish deck, or my landfall deck more often than I think he's going to my Eldrazi deck, just because my Eldrazi deck's looking to do more, and I want my 4-drop to block.
See, I think there's a pretty reasonable curve that we've seen so far for Eldrazi's to get up to your Eldrazi. So I think this will be just fine in your Eldrazi deck.
All right. Only the future will know.
Yes.
But Sludge Crawler will not know because this card's not going to be played.
Nope.
Black
not at
for
all.
a 1/1, Devoid and Jest, which is fine. 2 colorless, it gets +1/+1 to end of turn.
It's very phallic looking.
Yeah.
Anyway, next. So we have the 4-mana Abomination. This one has been smothered or is smothering. We're not sure. So this one is getting a lot of hype because you can sacrifice any random creature to draw cards.
Yeah, you turn your Eldrazi Scions into drawing cards. It is 4 for a 4/3 flying. Usually the
It
worst.
also flies.
Yeah, the worst case scenario usually is you sacrifice a card to get it. Now it says whenever you sacrifice a creature. So let's say I play this on turn late, and I have multiple Eldrazi Scions, and then I sacrifice my Eldrazi Scions. They now provide me 1 mana and draw me a card.
That's pretty good.
It's really good.
It's a very good enabler. It'll probably be used at some point in a combo deck.
I will say in limited, you need to make sure that this card fits in your deck. This is not a card you can just afford to keep around. Paying for a 4/3 that says at the end of your beginning of your next upkeep, sacrifice this card, draw a card is not very good.
Nope.
So you need to make sure this card is supported. This is one of the constructed better cards, limited, kind of limited. All right, Surge Swarm, 2 and a black, sorcery devoid. Creatures you control get +2/+0. Colorless creatures you get Colorless creatures you control also gain first strike. If there is a Scion deck, this will be good in it. I don't think it's great otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it seems passable. You wouldn't mind having it as your 23rd card, I don't think.
Tell us about Transgress the Mun.
So this one is, target player reveals their hand, and you choose a card with converted mana cost 3 or greater and exile it. That's unfortunate that they didn't just reprint the card everybody wants them to reprint.
Inquisition of Kozilek.
Yeah, they should have probably just reprinted that.
We might get that. Remember, this is Ulamog's set. Kozilek's probably the next one with the channel. So Inquisition of Kozilek may come back.
So if you got them, get rid of them. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Or keep them for your modern deck that you're playing right
Most
now.
of these have Devoid, so we may not see a reprint.
Well, maybe they'll print another card that does the same thing.
With Devoid, yeah, just a better, yeah, sure. Anyway, yeah, this is a fine card. Usually it's going to start in your sideboard. You'll bring it in against the Eldrazi decks or against decks that have a serviceable amount of targets. Most will. I don't think we have decks that are aiming at converted mana costs 3 and 4. I think most decks are going to play 4 and 5 drops.
Yeah, I think for draft, though, it's a sideboard card.
So speaking of draft, interesting. Vampiric Rites. Enchantment, black. 1 black, sacrifice a creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. That's a strong effect. You are giving up a whole card to do that. But it enables life gain matters decks. It lets your Scions turn into cards if you want. It also blanks your opponent's removals. I think you have to have a reason to play this, but I think if you have the right deck, it's an interesting card. Remember, it is a do-nothing slot. You have to put 3 mana in before you get anything, and then you sacrifice the creature and play the card to gain a card. So it's going to take a minute, and you're going to have a reason to put it in.
And this is why the game is 13+. Look at all this blood on these cards right here.
Yeah. Voracious Knoll. 2 black for 2/2. Zombie. I think this is the first zombie we've seen. This has been a zombie-like place.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sacrifice another creature, or sorry, 1 black, sacrifice another creature. Put 2/1 counters on this. Activate all as a sorcery. Goes well with your Scions. You can eat them. This guy can beat up Eldrazi, potentially, fairly quickly.
That's a lot of creatures, but...
How many is it really? What, 2? 2 and he's a 6/6?
Okay, 2 and he can beat up on some Eldrazi.
3 and he's an 8/8?
So 4 and he can beat up on pretty much all Eldrazi.
Yeah, he's a 10/10. Then he's just tussling.
So it seems fine. I would play this card. It's 3 mana for a 2/2 with abilities. That's usually passable. This one's probably better than most.
The Wasteland Strangler. This card's exciting. Why don't you tell us about it, Brad?
Alright, so if you manage to process something, you get to give a creature -3/-3.
It's 3 for a 3/3, yeah. If there's an aggressive kind of deck that has that ability, I could see it being played in something like an Abzan Shell or something if there's a way to consistently get cards into the exile zone, just because being able to play a 3/2 that can kill a guy's nice, and limited, you're always going to play this. If you play a 3/2 for 3 on curve, that's great. Later in the game, it's going to kill something usually. That's great.
Yep. It's great all around.
You know it's not great?
Here's an ally. It's 2 mana for a 1/1. When this guy or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
It's a 1/1. It's just not there. I would have to be really deep in on the life gain matters thing, but even then I'm still out. Alright, so black is an interesting mix. It has quite a bit of allies is what I really noticed. Like there's a lot of vampire allies going along right here. Yeah. I think it has the 3rd most amount of allies.
Something like that. I did notice that for like multiplayer, like Commander and whatnot, a lot of the cards that say each opponent loses 1 life now say you gain 1 as opposed to you gain that much life.
I don't know if I like that. I think I like them being stronger multiplayer.
Yeah, I think they should have printed them stronger multiplayer because it doesn't matter for anything but multiplayer.
Alright, Brad, you want to talk about these first 2 guys? Mostly Akum Firebird and what it means for constructed and how you... I'm going to be right back.
Alright, so far I don't think very many Phoenix are played. So this one's probably going to just go on the list of Phoenixes, or Phoenixi, or whatever you say, that aren't played. This one's actually pretty pushed, though. Flying and haste on a 3/3 that has to attack each turn, which you're probably attacking each turn anyway with your Phoenix. And then you can landfall to give it the Phoenix ability. It probably won't make it. There's several other Phoenix that are all subpar, and this one's kind of subpar too. If it were a 4/4 for 4 with Flying and Haste, it might actually see some play, but as it stands, probably not. Let's see. The 6 mana 4/4 with landfall to do a damage or 2 damage if it's a mountain, And so notice the damage is damages to creatures or players. So this seems a little weak for a dragon, but then you remember that landfall is a lot easier to achieve and constructed, so it could make it, but I'm not sure there's a great chance for it because there's so many better dragons out there that you don't have to do anything to make them better. You just play them. So both of these probably won't see much play.
I think Akum Firebird's closer, but I think you're right.
Yeah, so there's already 2 Phoenixes, anyway, that don't see any play, both in standard. So
both of those are great limited cards, by the way.
Oh yeah.
If we don't mention a rare or a mythic as like being great in mythic, it's probably really good. We'll tell you specifically the ones that you're just not worth picking up.
Yeah. So this landfall to give you 3/1s for 3 mana. That exile at the end of your last. That seems fine. I don't know how many times you're really gonna activate that.
Well, there's 2 things. First of all, it's 2 for a 2/1 early.
That's pretty decent.
Which is, it's a good floor. It's not great.
Also, the next turn you can play that 3rd land and then get your abilities.
If you don't have a 3-drop, that's correct. And then later in the game, you can have a land drop that happens. And if you're lucky and you have a fetch land, or you have, what is it called? Evolving Wilds, you can pay 6 and get 2 3/1s. Now, these do die to the Scions, etc., etc.
And they die at the end of turn.
And they exile at the end of turn. But it is a fairly solid card early, and it's a fairly solid card late. It is weak to the Scions, as it is a 2/1, and it makes 31s. But they have Trample. Let's talk about Barrage Tyrant a little bit. 5 for a 5/3 to Void. 2 colorless red. Sacrifice another colorless creature. It deals damage equal to creature's power to target creature or player. So this is going to want you to sacrifice your kind of mid-sized guys a little bit, but it lets you
if you could finish someone off after attacking, then go for it.
Oh yeah, if you can just play your Desolation Twin and then next turn on tap. And then
I really don't like that he can't sacrifice himself, though. It seems like that wouldn't have made him too powerful.
Well, he's throwing them.
Well, so he can throw himself. But redo the art. Whatever. He should be able to throw himself.
Yeah, I think they just didn't want
Maybe in his other hand you could have put a bomb. I don't know.
As a rare, I think I agree. If this card was an uncommon, then maybe they wouldn't want to do that for power level sakes. But rares,
this guy's fine. He could have been way better. Though, I do like the flavor text. That's a plus.
Snake Man. If you have multiple lands enter the battlefield, you can trigger for each one. So if you play Evolving Wilds, that's a land drop, and then you fetch a land. That's 2 land drops, and then you can pay 2 colors red for each land drop. Sorry, we weren't clear on that. For the Akum.
And I think you can put that trigger on the stack, sacrifice your Evolving Wilds to get the mana if you need it, and then play the trigger.
The fetch land, but yeah. Evolving Wilds can be
it comes into play tapped, yeah, so you could theoretically respond to your trigger if you needed the next land or something.
Yeah, but I'm just being belligerent.
I don't think you're ever going to do that, yeah.
I'm just being belligerent here with the Belligerent Whiptail. 3 colors red for 4/2. Meh.
He gains first strike on a land. That seems fine.
Yep. Boiling Earth. 1 red. Boiling Earth deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. This is a sideboard in, sideboard out card. If your opponent has a lot of 1 toughness creatures, you're happy to have it. But here's the upside. If your opponent doesn't have any 1 toughness creatures and the game draws on and on and on, your useless card becomes a 7 mana 4/4, which is less useless.
Meh. It's alright. I'm glad that they made cards that would normally be unplayable reasonable near the end of the game.
Yeah.
So like this card is an excellent sideboard card because if you need it and you draw it on time, then it's going to do great. But if you end up not needing it or you draw it too late, you're still going to get something out of it for all your mana.
And I like how we don't have this on like a disenchant effect where you couldn't play it unless you had a target, because this doesn't require a target.
Yeah. So that's a really cool mechanic to make limited more fun, I think.
Chasm Guide.
Alright, so creatures you control gain haste, and this triggers on every ally.
4 for a 3/2.
That's pretty cool, especially since he gives himself haste.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, that's perfectly reasonable. I think this is a good card. It's an uncommon because they don't jump in too many. That would be very strong because, remember, it makes your ally effects surprise effects in addition to their ally effect. Let's look at a card that doesn't work for limited and isn't good. Crumble to Dust. 3 colors, red, devoid. Exile target non-basic land. Search the controller's hand, graveyard, library for any cards the same name. Exile them They shuffle.
Now, don't they have a sowing salt or something?
Sowing salt is 2 red and 2 colorless to do the same
thing. Does it for one land or 2?
1 base. It's exactly the same text except it's not devoid. This is a better version of that.
So that's great. We needed either a functional reprint or a better card than sowing salt because it got stupid expensive because it's in a lot of modern sideboards.
Oh,
so
well,
Chrome of the Dust is.
I have sowing salts. I'm gonna go find them and get rid of them.
Well, you should have done that a month ago. So
that's unfortunate.
I mean, they might still be worth something, but
probably
probably
not. I never knew sowing salt had value. Well,
yep.
Okay. Speaking of value, Dragon Master Outcast. So in limited, it's 1 for 1/1 at the beginning of upkeep. If you control 6 more lands, you get a 5/5 red dragon. This was originally in Zendikar, which is too fast for the card to be good.
And it was originally a mythic, right?
It was a mythic, and it's still a mythic.
Yeah, it's still a mythic.
That said, here it's going to be a little bit better. There's going to be times that, how many 5/5 red dragons do you need to deal with some Eldrazi? 2.
I want 7, but, that's just me.
Do you think this is a constructed playable card?
So it might actually be. Red is probably going to get a bit slower, and it's probably going to end up merging with a couple other colors to be playable. So this is probably reasonable.
If you were playing a deck that was mid-range or control, could you see this being your sideboard? Let's say you have red for free. We talked about the 16 lands, fetches, and that your shots essentially mean that you can have free splashes. And let's say that there's some sort of red removal spell you're splashing for, whatever burn spell, and you have 1 or 2 Dragon Master Outcasts on your sideboard for certain matches. Let's say that your control deck that doesn't run creatures, and you board this in on turn 5 or 6 against your other opponent, another control deck.
So this would be very good in that deck simply because it's 1 mana and they pretty much have to kill it if you're going to get the trigger.
And it leaves you the counter spells and everything else open. Okay, this is an interesting card for constructed.
Yeah.
What about Fire Mantle Mage? Let's just look at Fire Mantle. This guy's just on fire, and his flavor text is, "Come on, you twisted things. Don't you want to get acquainted?" I just like this guy that's on fire, just running at you, just like, trying to hug you with his fire body. So, 2 colors, red for a 2/2. Human Shaman ally.
Menace until end of turn is probably one of the best ally abilities you could think of.
Yeah, because you're not getting unblockable.
So, alright, that's good. Let's play it. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has haste. This is a reprint, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't know how many of those you'd actually want to play in limited, but 1's probably fine.
Kozilek Sentinel is 1 and red for a 1/4 devoid. I like that. That's really good. That's really, really good. Usually a 1/4 is 3.
You want that card because your Eldrazi deck's going to need that.
It's just a really good defensive card. And then whenever you cast another color spell, it gets +1/+0.
You're probably never going to use that ability. So
you can put in aggressive decks too. It's a 1/4.
It's fine, but really you want to block with that probably.
Lava Stop Raider, 1 for a 1/2. No, thank you. 2 colors red, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. No, thank you.
Yeah, see, I think a lot of people will also play this card.
I think all those
in
people are
in their
wrong.
1/1 flyer decks, and it's probably just not going to get there.
All right, so let's look at a card that I think is better for constructed than it is for limited, and this is going to blow your mind. Mankindi Slide Runner, 1 and a red for a 2/1 trample. Landfall gets +1/+1. In limited, this card is serviceable. You will play it. If you play a land that same turn, it can't be killed easily by scions. So, etc., etc. That's fine. Now let's look at it in constructed, which is, if I told you at first glance, does this look like a constructed card?
Actually, I think it does.
And the reason is because we're running 16, 15 fetch lands.
Yeah, and what's that lion that used to do?
Not Lone Lion. Sorry, you're thinking of the cat that's 1 color.
It's +2/+2 or something?
Yeah, the white, and it's a 0/1, and it gets +2/+2. Now this is worse when you play 2 lands, but it's better if you play no lands, and it's the same if you play 1 land as Plated Geopede. This is the Plated Geopede version. Trample, I think, is better than First Strike for aggressive decks. So we have a nice looking card here. It's not super exciting, but I think we're going to have probably a Naya Landfall aggro deck that's running just really strong creatures from
I really hope we get a Naya deck again.
All right. Again, it's a good card and limited. It's just constructed.
We might also get the green, blue, red deck, whatever the tribe that is now.
Teamer.
Yeah, that might work out with this guy.
So let's talk about Molten Nursery. 2 colors red, devoid. Whenever you cast a color spell, deals 1 damage to target creature player. It's not whenever a permanent enters the battlefield. You've got to cast. which I think is a downside with all the spawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the deck's there or not yet. You want to be casting quite a few, but I'm just... It's hard to say because it's on the edge, right? There's enough colorless cards, but are you going to get that many?
So I don't think it's for any format yet.
It would be for limited if it's anything. That's what
I don't think you could do it in limited.
You have to cast...
It wouldn't even work in, say, modern where you're playing Affinity. I mean...
And the thing about it is, in limited, you'd have to cast 2 colorless spells to really get there, because that's when you start killing worthwhile creatures. If this said...
Yeah.
If this was 4 red, whenever you cast a colorless spell, deal 2 damage to target creature, I would consider it.
So here's the thing, like, for 3 mana, you should probably be able to eke out 3 damage, right? And you might with this card, but it's over time, whereas you would probably rather just have 3 up front.
Yeah.
So you're probably just not playing this. Same thing with Nettle Drone. It has an ability to tap to damage each opponent, yet it's a 3/1, so why would I do anything but swing with it?
Well, when you cast a color spell, you can untap it.
Yeah, do 1 more damage. It's probably not worth it.
I'm going to play a 3-mana 3/1.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll play it for that, but you're still not going to pick it all that highly, I think, because 3/1's probably bad in this set.
Against other spawns, yeah, it's fine. Defensively, it's okay, too. You can play this defensively. The high power means that you can kill your opponent's good allies.
Yeah.
And you can tap it to ping.
If you could just tap to ping creatures, this guy would be amazing.
It'd be too powerful.
It would be too powerful.
Why don't you tell us about the champ?
Alright, so, Ondu champion? He is an ally, and he gives trample to all your allies, so he's a 4-mana 4/3. That's good enough to play. The fact that he has abilities is just icing. So yes, very playable, very good red card. Outnumber deals damage to target creature equal to number of creatures you control.
For a single red, this is the
that
kind
seems great.
Unlimited. In fact, there may end up being situations where this is sees constructed play. That's not normally the case. But if we have these wide red decks that want to answer a Siege Rhino or something, the fact of the matter is, it is 1 red to just deal that damage. I don't think it's likely, but as far as limited goes, this is an excellent card. It plays well in Allies. It plays well in Eldrazi.
Yep. It would have been way too powerful had they slapped or player on there.
Processor Assault. 1 red, devoid as an additional cost. Process a card. Deal 5 damage to target creature. How do you feel about Bad Roast?
Still close enough.
Now, you do have to be in that. Just like we talked about the Exile card that cost 3 colors that exiled a creature that you showed a colorless creature with power that or less.
Yeah,
this has
you're
a
not
setup.
just throwing this in any deck.
This does need to go in, and it's an even more restrictive process. It has to go in the deck with...
you're not playing this over Roast, so it's not really for...
No, this is for limited.
Yeah, for limited, it seems fine, though.
You have to realize this isn't a 2-drop. You're not normally going to have a card exiled.
But normally you don't deal 5 damage to a 2-drop anyway.
Not normally.
You wait until they get a bigger creature.
That's right. So this will be a good card. And there's plenty of situations where you could play your 3 or 4 mana or 2 mana card that causes them to exile a card and your Processor Assault in the same turn. So I think it's good. I don't think it's an early pick. It's the card that comes around you and rewards you for being in the Processor deck.
Yep. So Radiant Flames is a much worse... what is that card called?
It's not a worse Pyroclasm. Pyroclasm is 1 white... Sorry, red...
No, not Pyroclasm. The one that's
damage.
in Standard right now. That's 3 damage and exile those things that died.
Yeah.
Much worse than that.
Right.
As far as Pyroclasm goes, most decks are probably going to still play Pyroclasm.
Yeah, this does 1 to 3 damage, and if you build your deck correctly, you may have some choice in how much damage it does.
Yeah, but I think for Standard that might be fine. But for like Modern, yeah, you're going to play Pyroclasm.
Yeah,
you're not going to look at this twice.
It's a good card in Limited as well. Being able to deal 2 damage to all your creatures when you need to is great, and if you can deal 3, super.
Do something real quick.
Reckless Cohort, 1 red for 2/2, human warrior ally. It attacks each combat unless you control another ally. Not excited about this card. Not normally going to want to play this card. This is kind of a bottom level ally. There's too many things that will just murder it, which is kind of the theme. Retreats of Valakut. Now, Brad's not here right now, so I'm going to talk about this a lot and say it's really good because he's not here to naysay all these things, which I do think the landfall lands are. Now, Brad's coming back just to make fun of it, huh? It's a 2 and a red, Landfall. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end turn. Target creature can't block this turn. This card actually is only for aggressive decks again. I think it's better than the black one for being aggressive. The extra power can mean a little bit more. I don't think it's actually very good overall.
Yeah, I don't think you're playing this.
I think so far that the white and the blue ones I would consider playing. I think the red and the black ones I would usually not.
The white, I would say, might be a 23rd card. The rest of them, I think, are just not something you want.
The Scry and the tap down ones? See,
I don't think you want that.
Me and Brad are, you guys go back to this and one of us will be wrong, unless it's me, in which case I'm going to delete this.
Yep,
not be wrong.
Delete.
I'm just kidding.
All right, so Rolling Thunder. Daniel has probably talked more about this card than a reasonable human should have. It's great. You should always pick it. Period.
Constructed. Imagine a world where we're playing a lot of mana. Could you see Rolling Thunder?
I can see this even being played in Constructed, which is crazy they made it an uncommon. I like it.
Again, we said it's an uncommon because it's essential for the format. It answers the Scions. It answers the big creatures.
So is this that 7 mana card that is part of that cycle that is not a creature?
I don't know. It is Serpentine Strike, 5 red, devoid, so 7 mana. It's sorcery, deals 2 damage to a creature, 3 damage to another creature, 4 damage to another creature, and so 3 different creatures take 2, 3, 4.
And they exile instead of die.
So limited, excellent. You've got Build Your Own Wrath. Does not kill very many giant cards.
Yeah, I don't think you want to take this in draft.
If I'm playing a big effect, this will kill 3 allies, or this will kill processor
okay,
cards.
so it's going to kill 3 allies at 7 mana?
Yeah.
You're probably not going to live that long.
It's a good point.
I mean, and then it won't kill 3 Eldrazi, so why are you bothering to play it?
You can't.
So I think this is just not a very good card.
It's a good point. You can't play it early. You can't pick it early.
And there's a similar green card that gives 1/1 counter, 2/1 counters, and 3/1 counters, and it's almost impossible to play that thing because you don't keep 3 creatures. Well, hopefully they're not keeping 3 creatures either.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, the corollary card to that is Cone of Flame, which is great. This is a more expensive.
Cone of Flame is fine, but it's still not great. It's okay.
I would think it's great, but still,
Cone of Flame in this set would be fine.
Fine, but not great. Yeah,
it would be fine. But 7 mana to do this, which may be 3 creatures, but you may not ever have 3 targets, and you may not kill anything with those 3 targets, or kill anything that matters with those 3. Yeah, I don't think you want to play this. Yeah,
it's a good point.
It's unfortunate because even if they pushed it to be 4, 5, and 6 damage, you still might not play it. So,
all right, let's go to.
I don't know why everything keeps going off that is electronic today.
Shatter Skull Recruit. 3 red for a giant warrior ally. 4/4 menace. Great. Serviceable. Top of the curve. Happy to have it. Just a solid guy. Nothing special. Stone Fury. 5, 3 red. Instant. It deals damage equal to number of lands to target creature. So it's lands you control to target creature. We've gotten this effect at green and red. Just 2 mana. For the sorcery version, you're still going to be happy to play this. Remember, you will be having more turns in general, so it'll be a more powerful effect.
It seems fine. I wish it didn't cost 5.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't think it's worth 5.
You'll be playing them.
You'll have to play it because that's all there is. But so let's see, +3/+0 and first strike. So I think the value of this one actually goes up, other than normal. The first strike, I think, is going to mean a whole lot for defense and offense. So normally this card wouldn't see all that much play, but I think it'll see a pretty good amount of play this time.
Yep, and it is the best combat trick I've seen so far. What about Touch of Void?
So 3 damage to target creature or player, and then it exiles. So it's a overcosted devoid incinerate, right?
It's a sorcery, but I still think you're happy to play it.
Okay, so it's a slow overcost. Yeah, I mean, you got to play it, but I don't think it's winning any awards or getting played in standard. So
yeah, it's a solid
and
card.
if it does get played in standard, that's because the card pool of red cards has gone so low you have to play.
Now, black had good removal, and red has Rolling Thunder, Stone Fury, Touch of Void, Sure Strike. Red's got removal.
You know what? It's better than Ghost Flame or whatever, Ghost Fire.
Yes, it is.
So you'll play it over Ghost Fire, which gets played every once in a while on the Affinity sideboards.
What?
I used to. Doesn't much anymore.
Why did it?
I don't remember, but it did. No joke. I've played a lot of Affinity. People play Ghostfire sometimes.
That's weird.
Not for me.
All right, Tunneling Geopede.
So this one has a landfall. It deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Yeah, 3 for 3/2. I'm happy with
I'd
that.
play that. Yeah. The next one is Turn Against. So this is what do they call that card? That's printed in basically every set.
Oh no, it's not. Brad was going to say that this is Act of Treason, which lets you steal opponent's card on their turn. This is 5 and a red, devoid, instant. Take control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste. Now, it's Word of Seizing, essentially. The original version, I can't remember, is blue. It might have been a long time since anyone's played with this kind of effect. It's much better. Your opponent attacks into you. You steal their Eldrazi, take it out of combat, block their Death Touch creature, and 2 for 1 them. So this can steal their creature, and you can attack with it just like an Act of Treason. But you can steal one of their attacking creatures, make it a blocker. We'll take one of their creatures that's on the back lines that's not attacking for whatever reasons, make it a blocker. You can do a lot of interesting things with this card. As an instant, if your opponent plays a card that says target player sacrifices a creature, you can turn against, make them sacrifice the creature. This card, I was so excited to see. I'm not saying that it's always going to be better, but the ceiling on this card is basically unlimited. It does almost anything that you can imagine. Are you saying
that it slices and dices and does julienne fries?
That's right.
All right.
We'll have fun with that card. All right. Velokut Invoker. 2 red for 2/3.
I'd play that. Yep.
8.
We don't need to read the text.
8 damage, deal 3 damage to target creature.
If you get to 8, then you just, every turn, 3 damage. Boom.
Yeah. All right. So tell us about the Predator.
So the Landfall Predator 3 for a 2/2 is probably the best one of this +2/+2 cycle. Just because it's coming down early and it's getting that trigger and it's getting that trigger and it's getting that trigger and it's getting that trigger, or it's dying.
Yeah.
Either one, I'm fine with. 3 mana for a 2/2 that has such a powerful ability is going to be great. You're going to want a lot of these.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, can you imagine getting 2 of these out and then you're just like, oh, here's a land and 2/4/4's coming at you.
Yeah. It's strong. I think I might like the blue one better, but I'm not sure. This one is a lot more quick.
The blue one costs like 5 or something?
Costs 6 for a 3/4.
Yeah, this one's way better than that.
Vestige of a Miracle. 3 red for a 4/3, devoid trample. That's fine.
It's a 3/4, but yeah.
Yes,
fine.
3/4.
Take it.
Vile Aggregate.
So I'm noticing with the red cards here that you might just be able to make a red Eldrazi deck, and that red Eldrazi deck just plays the low curve until it hits enough mana to hit Eldrazi.
We saw the red and black with aggressive Eldrazi, and that's where they are. The red and black was
awesome.
Yeah, the blue Eldrazi are more defensive. So the Vile Aggregate is 2 in a red for a star 5, and its power and toughness, its power is equal to the number of colorless creatures you control. It has Devoid, so it's a 1/5 at least, and has Trample and Ingest. It's a good enabler for Ingest. It's a good damaging mechanic.
1/5 for 3. That's wonderful.
And it's a good defensive.
If it happens to be bigger, it happens to be bigger.
And you got to imagine with the signs, this card could be an 8/5. You could be staring down a very large card. I think this is one of the best.
And
aggressive
it's
and defensive.
So I'm loving this card. That's a very high pick.
Tell us about the Upheaval.
So that's practically unplayable.
Yep. All right. Zadahedron Grinder. Volcanic Upheaval is 3 red, destroy target land.
I wasn't even going to read it.
It's an instant, which is weird.
Hey, so against people that happen to have a man land in their pool, you're probably still not putting it in there.
If your opponent has enough Awaken cards, you could sideboard it.
I mean, you could. You're really grasping at straws if you do that, though.
Vile Aggregate only counts colorless creatures, Nazir. So in the Goblin deck, it's not going to do anything because they're not colorless creatures.
Is it a Goblin, though?
No. He was saying it could be interested in a Goblin, but it unfortunately doesn't work with them. But Zadahedron Grinder is a Goblin, and it's 3 red for a 3/3 Goblin ally. Meh, that's okay. It's legendary. What are we getting? Whenever an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zadahedron Grinder, whenever you cast one, so it's only good spells, you get a copy for each other creature. So if you play a Giant Growth on him, everyone gets a Giant Growth.
Probably not worth it.
You're not normally going to be able to build around him in Limited, but if you have 1 or 2 good cards for it, he can be worth it on its own.
And the sad thing is I don't think it's good for an ally deck, and I don't think it's good for a Goblin deck, so I don't think it'll get much play.
And Constructed, yeah. In Limited, I think that this card is fine. It's an ally, so it's fine. and you probably have some sort of combat trick, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably fine if you're just building an ally deck for a draft. So.
All right, Beastcaller Savant.
See, this is sad. This guy could totally just be a 1/1 for 1 and have that ability, and it'd be great. But at 2 mana, it's probably not as good as that common from what is it, Theros or something? That's a 1/2 that untaps a land.
Yeah,
that doesn't have haste.
That's going away too. We get
but it's not that good.
Green haste, 1/1 tap. Add any mana you color. It can only be used to cast creatures. It's an ally. It's not exciting, but
yeah, I mean,
it's
haste doesn't matter because it costs more than it generates. So.
Well, later on, like it can be multiple ally triggers. Let's say it's turn 5, and you play him, ally trigger. You tap him to play another ally trigger.
That's cute, but
I mean that's the best case. Yeah, he's not great. Yeah. I know, but that's why he has haste.
All right, so Blister Pod, when it dies, put an Eldrazi spawn in play. Hey, look at that! I'm playing that.
It's okay. It just buys you time. It's not great. Whatever.
Yeah, and it's great with the black cards that sacrifice.
Yep.
So,
but Brood
time is what I want for my Eldrazi deck. So this one puts 3 and doesn't require you to ingest.
Nope. You just get 3 1/1s.
Seems fine.
And you get
6 mana for 6 power and toughness, 3 of which can be mana. Perfect.
It's a great card.
So this Broodhunter Worm is what I want in a green card. It has equal power to its
casting
costs, and the fact that it has 3 toughness probably doesn't mean much in this set.
It's fine.
I mean, it's better than a lot of cards we've seen.
Call the Scions, 2 green sorcery, put 2 1/1 Scions on the play. It's fine. It's 2 bodies. They can be mana. The flexibility is the reason that you're excited about this card. Either side of the card, 2 mana for 3 temporary is bad, 2 1/1s for 3 is bad, but the whole thing is nice.
So Earthen Arms seems great. 2 1/1 counters on target permanent seems fine. You can awaken it for a ridiculous amount of mana.
Well, for 7, you do get the 6/6 because you can pick the same. It says permanent, not creature, so you can put 2 1/1 counters on the land that you're awakening.
That's wonderful. Though usually you'll want to spread it.
Yeah, but if you draw it off the top.
If you draw it off the top and you have nothing in play but 7 mana, you're good to go.
If you play with your goblin guy that doubles everything, everyone gets. I'm just kidding. Anyway,
that would be pretty epic, actually.
Sure.
If that ever happens, then I hope it's on stream.
3 green for a 1/1 Eldrazi drone devoid. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 1. So you get 3 bodies for 3 mana. That's a lot of time. Remember,
loving the green.
These green cards are not about. They're either about playing mass pump spells like the blue guys we saw that made extra guys bigger, or buying you enough time to play big things. Right? The black and red ones are mostly aggressive. The blue ones are about buying time, but kind of by like using effects, and the green ones are about multiple bodies that are sacrificable.
All right, so we're at 2.5 hours or 3.
Yeah, we're almost wrapped up here.
So we're not even halfway, Daniel. See,
most of those are lands.
Oh, okay.
From Beyond.
All right, so this one is devoid, and then this one is like the Awakening Zone or whatever. You get the 1/1s during your upkeep, and you can sacrifice 1 to search for an Eldrazi.
No, you sacrifice the enchantment. You search for an Eldrazi card, including any Eldrazi card. So things like the Mass Removal Eldrazi spell from the last set, All Is Dust.
Oh, so anything that says Eldrazi right here.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to mouse over that because I can't see. Yeah. So anything that says Eldrazi in the type.
Including sorceries and instants from the other set. So this is a card that isn't seeing play. It'll see standard play. It'll be great and constructed. It might maybe see modern play in the Tron runs All Is Dust, right?
Yeah, like one in the sideboard though.
Then probably not. But if All Is Dust becomes a more prominent card, you could see this card seeing some play. Anyway, Giant Mantis is 4 for a 2/4 reach. Serviceable.
Seems fun. It's an insect. There aren't many of those in the set. So a lot of people are liking this Green Warden.
Well, you just take 2 Eternal Witnesses, mash them together, and then you get a 6-drop, which is not quite as nice, but sure. So it's 4 green for a 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may return a card from your graveyard to your hand. When it dies, you do not have to exile, which is a big deal, not just for avoiding processors, but you can cycle them if you don't. And if you do exile it, you get another card back. It's good for like grindy decks.
It's like a tree man.
Yeah, it'll be good in your
all right,
whatever other decks do.
All right. Converge. Put X 1/1 counters on target creature, and X is the converge.
So it's usually 2. That's fine.
Yeah,
it's not
that seems
great.
fine.
Sometimes it's a better.
It's an instant. I like that. It's a combat trick.
It's a combat trick that gives you 2 to 3.
Defender with landfall that gains you a life. Not something I really want to play.
No.
The Elf Druid to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
But it's 3.
So this one might see some play in draft or whatever, just because it'll get you to Eldrazi's. I mean, the other one will too.
Yeah.
But the other one, from a rare, you kind of expect that it might have some playability outside of limited.
Yeah.
So.
This is fine. It's not great because it is 3 to ramp you. So Ranger is a little more exciting though. 4 for a 3/4. Sorry, 4 for a 3/3. Whenever you play a land, you can pay 4 if you do 2 counters. You only have to have that happen a couple times to be able to tussle.
Yeah, I like this whole cycle of creatures that do that. So this is Natural Connection.
It's a rampant growth, but at instant speed. So you pay 3, you get a land. But it's an instant speed, so it's a combat trick with landfall creatures, which is a lot of in green.
Huh. That's cute.
It's cute. Yeah, it is.
Still comes into play tap, though.
Right, but you're getting that instant speed landfall trigger. So you have to imagine it as not just a bad rampant growth, but also a potential combat trick.
Alright, Sorcery. I don't see this Nizza's Renewal getting much play. Search your library for 3 basic land cards, put them in the battlefield, then you gain 7 life. So it's not good for EDH because it goes against basics. If it just said land cards, that would be amazing.
You have enough cards in EDH, you're going to have some basics. But, I mean, the thing about it is, it lets you play your bigger spells, it gives you the life to do it. Whether or not it sees play...
Probably not.
Up in there, gives you 3 landfall triggers. Maybe that matters, maybe not. I don't think you're normally running this card, but if you care about 9 mana or 3 landfall triggers and 7 life, if any 2 of the 3 line up,
yeah,
you might.
I mean, you might if you get it in your sealed pool, run it, because sealed's a lot slower.
I would play this in my Eldrazi. If I'm playing green Eldrazi, I'm going to play this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we might take it for that, but you're not going to take it highly for that either, I don't think.
No, I'm going to start with the Eldrazi, and that'll come next. What about the Oran Reef Hydra?
Alright, so this one is the Forest Landfall guy. He's 6 mana, and he gets 1 counter for normal lands and 2 counters for Forest. I think he might be the best of the cycle just because he's going to be the biggest, the quickest.
Yeah, I don't.
And he has trample.
I don't think he's playable anywhere outside of.
No,
he's great.
I think he's the best of the cycle we've seen so far of this.
Maybe the white one that return stuff. Maybe that one. It's hard to say. Oran Reef Invoker, 2 for a 2/2.
I like this guy. Actually, I like all of this cycle as well, just because they have utility later, and you're probably going to get to the later.
Yep, and they're a throwback from the original Rise of Eldrazi Invokers. All
right, so Trample Hexproof seems playable.
7 for a 7/6.
Almost an Eldrazi.
Trades with a lot of Eldrazi. The hexproof part's nice if you want to buff him up some more.
Is he a Beastrazi then? Anyway. Destroy target creature with flying. That's
back.
Always a reasonable sideboard card. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. Is this a reprint? Seems very familiar.
There's versions of it that exist, but this is a new version of it.
Okay, so it's a sorcery. I don't think you're going to often be sideboarding this, but I mean, if you need to destroy an artifact or enchantment, then...
Alright, so we're going to go to Retreat from Khazad-dûn. 2 colorless green. Landfall. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Gain 2 life.
See, this one's okay.
I like this one. I think that the red and the black ones are not particularly playable. I think the blue one's good for aggressive decks. I think the white one's good for aggressive decks. And I think this one fits into either. I think this is the most flexible. I think it's the best of the whole set.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm still not keen on it.
I'm hot on him. He's not. We'll see where it's at.
I'm not keen on it at all. Because you have to set it up too much, I think.
When you play lands.
But you're playing a 3 mana spell. Let's say you get it on the 3rd turn. That's the most value you can get out of it, right?
Sure.
So you get it on the 3rd turn, you play it. Well, I didn't just play a creature on the 3rd turn, so I didn't do too much to set up my board. Now, that may not matter. If the format's slow enough, this may give you so much incremental advantage that you win because of it.
So, I'm imagining a situation. I play let's say I play a 3 mana 3/3. And then turn 4, I play this and a land, and now I have turned my 3 mana 3/3 into a 4/4.
See, that seems pretty good. And this is definitely the best one, but if this format is not super drawn out slow, I don't think you're going to get much value.
You want it to be in the right deck, but we'll see where it goes. Rock Shambler.
This one says whenever a creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on him. Seems okay for a 2 mana drop.
So Scythe Leopard, I think is worse in limited than it is in constructed. Again, it's 1 for 1/1 landfall 1. The thing is, let's say we have that Naya deck that's running 16 or 15 fetches. This is consistently attacking for 2 to 3 mana. That's solid.
The only problem with this guy is I don't think he's going to get outside of standard just because there's the
I agree.
Wild Nactal.
Yeah, I think that all of the landfall cards are not going to make it outside of standard, but in standard I think they will shine. I will say, we have not seen any allies except for that one rare. Green is very ally-like. There's a lot of these fungus, landfall, cats,
insects, beasts. Alright, keep going. So this other landfall dude, he gets +1/+1 as well. That seems fine.
2 for a 2/2. Yep. And he mows down through the scions a little bit better than the trample guy.
Yep.
Alright, Seek the Wilds. 1, green. Look at the top 4 cards. You may put a creature or land from among them into your hand, the rest on the bottom. It's fine if you need filler cards. This is your filler card.
It's weird that it's a creature or land. Some of those give you both.
It's at 2 mana. Swell of Growth. 1 green, instant. Target creature gets +2/+2. You may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. This is a landfall trigger card, so you're going to give 1 creature +2/+2. Then you get your landfall trigger.
Not to mention you're accelerating.
You're accelerating out things. It's a powerful card. Again, when I talked about that green Landfall Matters deck, there's a green Landfall Matters deck. And it doesn't play allies, it doesn't play Eldrazi. It can play with either, but it's its own little beast. It's kind of different.
So I'm loving that they reprinted Sylvan Scrying. Even though I probably have 4 dozen of them.
1 in a green, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library.
And this is played in the Tron deck.
And it's even better now. We have all these utility lands that you can go ahead and fetch up your... the card, what is it? Haven of the Spirit Dragon, or whatever you want. We'll see some more good lands in it.
So this will be great for standard, and it's a great reprint for modern to keep costs low.
Taju Beastmaster, 5 green for 5/5. 6 for 5/5 is fine. It's an elf warrior ally. When it enters the battlefield, or another ally, creatures you control get +1/+1. It's okay.
Seems fun.
Yep.
5/5 for 6 at the very least. Converge Elf Scout enters the battlefield with 1/1 counters equal to colors. I don't think you're going to want to play this. I think you're usually going to hit for 1 color.
You're going to hit for 2 colors.
On the 3rd turn?
Yeah, usually it's going to be 2 colors. You're usually getting
it's a 2/3 for 3? That's fine.
And sometimes it's a 3/4 for 3.
I still don't think this is going to be a high pick.
Nope. It's just fine.
Alright, Rally. So this one's the +2/+2 on the ally triggers.
Yep.
So he's +2/+2, and he hits himself. But he doesn't have haste. So 5 mana for a 2/1 is pretty terrible. So you're going to want to be heavy allies before you hit this guy.
That's true, but if you are heavy allies...
he's great.
Or if you're a heavy attack, if you're playing, you're playing your heavy Scion deck, and you're playing tons of Scions, this is 5 to give them all +2/+2, which is true. Okay.
Even if it's a one-time effect in your deck. So let's see. The Baloth is +2/+2 for a landfall. That seems fine. Yeah.
It can be blocked.
I'd play that guy.
Yeah, these topping cards of the Beastmaster and the Baloth are just okay. Because they're getting outclassed by Eldrazi pretty hard.
Now, people are going apeshit over this Underground Champion.
Undergrowth Champion is 1 green for 2/2. If damage would be dealt to it, remove a 1/1 counter. If it has a 1/1 counter.
Prevent that damage. Yeah,
landfall.
and then landfall to give him the counters.
So in Constructed, he will always have counters. He will die to, removal spells.
Yeah.
But they can't be damage-based. In Limited, he's a mythic. He's going to be great. You're always going to run him. It's a reason to be green.
Yep.
He won't necessarily outgrow Eldrazi's always, but sometimes he will if you get him down early. Unnatural Aggression is 2 green, instant, devoid. Target creature you control fights an opponent's creature. If your opponent's creatures will die, exile it. This seems weak. We're used to fight with upside. This is just fight with processor upside. Not
I mean, you'll still probably play it.
Yeah.
Just because removal.
Yeah, sure. I think it's one of the weaker fight cards.
All right, another Devoid card. Put a card. So process. Get a spawn. This is one of the best processes I think we've seen.
Yeah, and it's 3 for a 2/3, so it's just fine as is.
And just making Eldrazi spawn from their cards that's the best.
Woodland Wanderer is 3 green, Vigilance Trample, 2/2, Converge, gets a 1/1 counter. So if let's say in Constructed you spent 3 colors for it, you are getting a 5/5 for 3. I don't think that's
4
for 4. I don't think that's good enough. In Limited, if you get 2 colors, it is good enough. A 4/4 for 4 is good. If you can make it a 5/5 for 4, that's great. We'll not talk about it being 4 colors. That's unrealistic. All right. We're almost at the end here. Angelic Captain, Angel Ally, 5, so it's 3 red white for a 4/3 flying. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each attacking other ally. So if there is a constructed ally deck, this would go in it. I don't think there's going to be one that supports this. It's great in limited. Bring to Light is an interesting constructed card. I think it's worse in limited, but it's fine. 3 blue-green, converge. Search for an instant creature sorcery with converted mana cost equal to or less than your total converge. So you can get a 5-drop or less if you converge for 5, 4 for 4, etc.
And you actually cast the card, too.
You immediately,
That's
and you
pretty
can
cool.
cast it whenever you want. So let's say I get in a counterspell out, I can cast it whenever I want
For the rest of the game.
for the rest of the game.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
It has constructed potential. We'll see if the deck comes out for it. If there's a 4 or 5 color deck, there's a strong chance that it can be played, especially if there's one that wants bullets. In limited, I think it's a lot worse because you're not normally going to be able to cast it for more than 3, and I do not want to pay 5 to get any 3-drop of my choice.
Now, when you cast a card, can you cast it for its alternate cost?
No, because you're not paying that cost. You have to pay it for regular cost.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's look at a good card for limited. Brood Butcher, 3 black-green. Devoid Eldrazi Drone, 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1. Black-green, sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. You can sacrifice it itself, which is a rare ability these days. It's not constructed level, but as far as limited goes, this is a reason to be in black-green, and it would sway me towards it.
Yep.
Now, let's look at a card that is constructed playable. Brutal Explosion. 2 blue, red, devoid instant. Choose one or both. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. So we've got a Venser effect. Or deal 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If it would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. How do you feel about that for constructed?
It seems fine for constructed. Now, I don't know if it'll make it outside of standard, but
I agree.
it seems fine for standard.
It's good for limited as well.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably play it limited. All right, let's do the Sifter. Devoid gives you a 1/1.
It's 3 for a 2/3 devoid. You get a 1/1, and whenever another creature dies, you scry 1. This is probably the best uncommon in the set.
I'd agree with that.
It's ridiculous. You can immediately, whenever you want, just scry and make stuff. I would pay if they took away any one of these abilities, the card would be good. That's how you can tell it's a good card. All right,
Yep.
Drenna's Emissary. It feeds the black-white deck. 3, 1 white, red. Sorry, 1 white, black, flying at the beginning of your upkeep. Drain 1.
Seems fine.
2/2. It's great. It's hitting for 3 a turn. You're gaining a life. The life gain matters things. This is the kind of strong card in that kind of archetype. Dustwalker, 2 black-red, 4 Eldrazi, 5/3, devoid haste. At the beginning of each end step, if you control other creatures, return to your hand. That's not necessarily a downside in
Colorless creatures.
colorless creatures. In constructed, because you can avoid wrath with it. You can pay 5 to multiple times hit them.
Yep.
You know.
I think it's good that it's 4 mana. If it were more than that, I think it would be overcosted.
Yeah.
It seems fine. I like that if this is your only colorless creature, you're probably fine in draft, paying for it every turn.
Oh yeah, it goes in your ally deck for your ally beatdown deck.
Yeah, so that's all fine. Now, the next one, the Feeder, draw a card, each opponent exiles the top card of his or her library. I'm not so sure this is going to see much play. You would probably play it in your
I'd always
in
play
your
it
draft deck or
because
limited
it's
deck.
death touch.
So
And I mean that late game ability is good too. I mean it's fine at any point. I don't think it's anything outside of limited.
yeah. Now, if you get it down real late in the game, it might immediately just draw you into the cards. Like, say I have 7 mana, I'll just draw a card with this.
Well, and it's also nice if my opponent has to spin cards to kill my 1/1s.
That's cool. Not to mention, draw a card doesn't say do it as a sorcery.
Nope, whenever you want.
So
Forerunner
leave it in.
Slaughter. Black red, 3/2, devoid. And you can pay 1 to give a color creature haste. So you can
Including
play,
it.
right, if you have 3 mana, this is a 3/2 haste. And then later it goes walnut 2. If you are scaling up like Brad's imagining this deck that goes from aggressive to big, your Desolation Twin can come down a turn later with haste.
Yep.
Or whatever. Grove Rumbler.
Seems
2
fine.
red, green, 3/3, trample, and it grows bigger. It becomes a 5/5. It's solid. Grove Tinder Druids, 2 green white, 3/3 ally. Whenever you have an ally to the battlefield, you can pay 1 and get a 1/1 green. This ability seems kind of weak overall, but remember, most of the Eldrazi do not have trample, so this does let you get out chump blocks and extend the game as you build up a bigger force than your opponent.
I really like the Herald of Kozilek. He is really heralding some Eldrazi.
1 blue red. Devoid. 2/4. Color spells cost 1 less. Weird. Kind of blue red. Really cool. Goes in the deck. Helps you get your stuff out.
It's also a 2/4. 4 is a really good toughness for this set.
For a 3-drop, yeah. All of the uncommons are good. Herald of Kozilek shines there as well.
So that's a very high pick.
Let's go up to the rares. Kiora, Master of Depths. 2 green blue. 4 loyalty. +1. Untap a creature and a land. -2. Reveal the top 4. You can pick a creature and or a land. Put them to your hand. Put the rest in your graveyard. -8. You get an emblem. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have it fight target creature, and then put 3 8/8 octopuses. This needs a deck built around it.
It does. Now, if you get it in limited, you are just going to play it.
Sure, yeah.
So,
that's Planeswalkers.
Yeah. I like that it ticks up to 5 loyalty immediately. That makes it a little harder to die, and it might untap a creature.
Yeah, it can give a creature could have attacked or used an ability, and you can block with it.
So that's cool.
You've just got to build the deck around it. The deck needs to either be using creatures that tap for mana and or needs graveyard effects. If you have those, then it's probably good.
Return any number of target ally creature cards with total card mana that cost 8 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. I think the problem with this card is most of the really crazy good allies are so high converted mana cost, you're probably not getting many of them back.
If there's a constructed ally combo deck, this will be the piece that pushes it over. Otherwise, it's fine. You'll play it in limited because of all the ally triggers.
Yep.
Munda, Ambush Leader. 2 red-white for 3/4 haste, core ally. That's good. When it enters the battlefield, or another ally enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal any number of allies, and put those on top of your library in any order. And the rest of the bottom.
So I think it should have just put them directly in your hand. I don't think that would have been too powerful.
I don't know. Either way, if you hit with this, you will continue to hit with this. You'll always draw cards. Your opponent has to kill it immediately. It's very powerful.
When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put 3/1 counters on target land. If you do, the land becomes
a 0/0 haste.
Yeah.
It gives you all of your instants and sorceries have free awaken.
It's 5 it becomes awakened. That's what I was trying to say.
I don't think that this card is particularly playable outside of limited. I think that this card has a chance to make it in the ally deck if the ally deck exists.
All right.
There is no 1-drop mana accelerants anymore in Nimble Mongoose. Those are gone for the time being. Our version of that is the 1/1 haste for 2.
It's real sad. So the Omnath, which is pre-selling for a lot of money, it landfalls to put a 5/5 into play, and when it dies or an elemental dies, it does 3 damage to target creature or player. Seems fine for limited, but I don't see it getting played in much else.
It's a tricky situation just because it's not quite good enough for anything. If you play it on 7, it is 2 bodies, 2 5/5s for 7, and they can't respond to it. And if you have fetch lands out, it could be more. I could see it making waves in standard. We'll have to see. It's very powerful. It's a mythic. It's a 3 red, green, green. So it's a 7 mana. Resolute Blade Master is 3 red-white for a 2/2 human soldier ally. When you pay 5 mana for your 2 drops, you expect something, and we get Rally Double Strike, which is strong. And
you said Rally, and that's really what it should be called.
Rally! I did it again too.
All right, creatures you control gain Double Strike. Seems fine. 5 mana is a lot for that ability.
You need to have more than one ally because you need this to happen subsequent turns. Turn 5, swing with Double Strike, your opponent's almost dead. Turn 6, and then you kill him. All right, Royal Spout.
Put target creature on top of its owner's library for 3.
That's a good enough effect, by the way.
Seems fine. Awaken for 4. That seems fine.
For 6. That's also
Awaken 4 for 6.
All right.
Sire of Stagnation. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, that player exiles the top 2 cards of his or her library. But it's a 5/7 for 6. Seems playable.
You draw 2 cards in the exile.
Oh, you also draw 2 cards. Well, guess what? They're probably just not going to play lands. So
they don't have that option. Let's say that we're playing, and I play this on turn 6, and you are playing the Eldrazi standard deck.
Then I guess you get to draw a lot of cards, and I get to be real sad.
It's a real card. All right.
I think it's great, and it's a very high pick.
Sky Rider Elf. X, green, blue. This is the best converge card for limited because it's flying, converge, 1/1 counters. So if you play green, blue, it's 2 for a 2/2. If you apply another color, it's 3 for a 3/3, and etc. It's like Sky Reach Manta, except for infinitely better.
So I'm really glad that their multicolored cards in this set are really pushed in comparison to the normal cards, because it's been being that, oh, it's multicolor and it still sucks.
Or it's just slightly better than an on-color card.
But
some of these
cards,
so let's start with
a lot better.
Ulamog's Nullifier. 2 blue black, 2/3 flying, flash void. Awesome. When it enters the battlefield, if you process 2 cards, counter target spell. This is the kind of card I can get behind, right? I mean, I would play that without the counter ability, and the counter ability is so good.
Reminds me of Mystic Snake.
Yes, it is like a better and worse Mystic Snake.
Yeah. It's better in that it counters anything, and it's worse in that you have to process.
Mystic Snake counters anything. It's better in that it's a 2/3 with flying.
Oh, Mystic Snake counters anything?
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Veteran War Leader, 1 green white, human soldier ally. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of creatures you control, not allies, all creatures. So that's good. Tap it, untapped ally. It gains first strike, vigilance, or trample. It's good. I don't think it's going to make it into the ally deck if there's one constructed, but in limited, you will play this. Remember, it counters scions too. Aligned Hedron Network. That sounds like something that would be like a technical term. Like if someone's like, Brad, can you go fix the Aligned Hedron Network? You'd be like, oh yeah, I have to just go work on the computers or something.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
I'll go restart it.
4, when it enters the battlefield, exile all creatures with power 5 or greater until it leaves the battlefield. This is great. This is the kind of card that's going to kind of keep decks that might cheat things into play kind of in check a little bit. It's interesting. Kind of odd. Hedron Net Archive. 4, tap to add 2, set to draw 2, and tap.
Seems great for the Eldrazi deck.
Nimble Mongoose, one of the reasons that Awaken gives haste is so that it's a non-feel-bad mechanic. Let's say that me and Brad are playing online and we play the planes, and then we awaken, and then we click the planes, and we click the wrong planes. Well, now we can't attack with it. And giving haste mechanically doesn't add any advantage. It doesn't really make the card better, per se, in almost any case. But what it does do is it makes feel-bad situations go away. So in situations where it would be a simple playing error of just like counting the right lands or where the lands fell on the visual stack on the computer.
Especially on MTGO.
Yeah, and that's what it's there for. Just so you don't have to worry about these stupid mistakes that are not intentional. Obviously, I didn't mean to make my 4/4 the one that couldn't attack. Hedron Blade. 1/+1/+1, 2 to equip.
Blocked by 1 or more colored creatures, it gains Death Touch.
So what I can do... Well, you say meh, but I can now trade off any of my allies for your best Eldrazi.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, this is probably going to be in my sideboard unless I just don't have it.
And it's a common. That's pretty good for a common.
Yeah. Yeah, this could potentially shut down lots of Eldrazi decks. As could Pathway Arrows. 1 to equip. 2, tap. Target creature deals 1 damage to target creature. If it's colorless, tap it. It's 2 to equip. Now you can never attack with your Eldrazi. Nice. Pilgrim's Eye is back. 3 colors for 1/1 flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may search for a basic land, put it into your hand. Serviceable.
Seems fun.
Slab Hammer is exciting. It's a landfall-oriented card. 2 to equip, 2 to play. And when a equipped creature attacks, you may return a land. If you do, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Now, the reason that this is not great is that you can't double up on the landfalls the first time you do it. You play your landfall, you get your trigger, you attack, you return the land to your hand. But it's a little ambiguous. Like, you can't get that combat benefit because you can't play land until your second main phase.
That's a good point.
So it's a tricky one. Ally Encampment, 1 mana you can add to any color mana.
They should call it Ally Hive.
Yeah.
Because it's just like Sliver Hive.
Yeah. You tap to add a mana, tap to add a mana of any color for an ally, 1 sack it, return ally to the controller's hand so you can use it again or save it from removal, etc. It's fine. Sure, you'll play it in your limited deck always if there's a constructed deck. There's a constructed deck. Here we go. The Blighted set. All of these are very good. They all tap for colorless mana and they'll have a colored effect. This one is 5 blue, sacrifice it, draw 2 cards. That's excellent. This one's 4 black, sacrifice the target opponent, sacrifice the creature. This one's variable. Either your opponent's playing Scions and it's not very good at all, or they only have 1 creature out and it just dies and kills one of their best creatures.
Now I wonder if in limited, like, For the pre-release, are we going to want to play just one of these if we pull one, or should we play two of them?
It depends on your mana requirements. If I'm playing a 2-color deck, I'll probably play as
two
many
of them if you have them.
I'll always play as many of them as I can afford based on my mana base. But if you're playing a 3-color deck, you probably can't play too many.
Probably not any. All right, let's go. 2 damage to target creature or player.
I think this is only okay. It's good against planeswalkers. It's good against certain other threats.
Wow, Blighted Step is awesome. It's not Glorious Anthem.
It's Congregate.
Congregation at Dawn.
No, it's Congregate.
Congregate. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes you don't care about the life. I think it's the most situational. Like sometimes this isn't a good effect. Sometimes it's great. The Woodland lets you get 2 lands, so it lets you pay 4 to essentially get an additional land, and they are 2-colored lands.
That's nice.
It is really good. I think it's consistently the best one, or the blue. All right, so where are the battle lands? Enters the battlefield untapped if you control 2 or more basics.
Yeah, these will probably get played just a little bit modern. I love that they reprinted Evolving Moss. Good
It's
picture.
essential for this set. All right, now we're going to go over the special lands. Fertile Thicket enters the battlefield tapped. You look at the top 5 cards. You may put a basic land on top of your deck.
The rest on bottom.
And then the rest on the bottom.
Seems fine.
Yeah, it guarantees another land drop. It's good. The next one.
So, where are they printing these lands that are half art?
Half art lands are most definitely with the regular packs. Not regular packs, sorry. With the packaged events, like Event Deck or the new player.
What's an Event Deck?
The event decks are the F&M ready decks. Or like if they have,
okay.
if you know, they'll have the 5 different decks or whatever for casual players.
Okay, all right.
All right, so the red one is +1/+1 in first strike. It's okay. Remember, you can't get it at instant speed or anything, so this is just getting a guy through. It's okay. Now, there are some of the green cards that let you put a land into play, and that plays well with it. The black one lets you put a card from your graveyard on top of your library. I think that's the best one overall.
That one's pretty good.
Lumbering Falls is a playable card, probably in Modern, definitely in Standard and Limited. You can play 2 green-blue, and becomes a 3/3 hexproof. Don't forget, hexproof land basically means it's unwrathable, it's untargetable, it's almost unkillable outside of combat. So that's a very strong card. And if you can manage to get 1/1 counters on it, it becomes terrifying. Alright, so some mountains. We're just rushing through here. We're finishing up.
I like that they reprinted a lot of the old ones.
Mm-hmm. Alright, Sanctum of Ugin is 1. You can add a colorless. And whenever you cast a colorless spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, you may sacrifice it. If you do, search for a colorless creature, reveal it, put it into your hand. This could see play in a lot of different formats. This could see play in Tron.
Could, yeah. We could see play in Tron.
Because you play your Ugin, you get your Wormcoil Engine, whatever. In Limited, it's also fine too.
You can't go get Wormcoil Engine, but because it costs 6.
No. You play
it's
your Ugin,
okay.
you get your Wormcoil Engine. Or whatever.
Keep going.
Sure.
+1/+1 and Vigilance. That's not bad.
It's alright.
Lifelink and 2/3.
The fact that it's only 3 can be at a 2/3 lifelink is the most relevant part. That's pretty exciting.
Yep.
Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Add 1. Add 2 to cast color spells. Only activate this if you control 7 or more lands. This is going to be an EDH, possibly standard card. You play it, and you should always play this in your limited pool though too, if you have big cards to cast, because early on it just taps for colorless. All right, this one.
Tap down a creature and keep it tapped down. That's pretty good.
Target creature doesn't untap. It doesn't tap the creature down.
Keep it tapped down for 1 extra turn.
Yep.
Just like all those effects.
Spawning Bed, 6 to create 3/1/1 tokens.
Ooh, that's really good.
It is.
I would play that.
Creates attackers, blockers, and temporary mana boosts.
Yeah.
Um,
That may be it.
I think that's
it.
All right, and the last thing I want to mention is that the treasure cards, the shock lands, and other cards, if you open those in your drafts or your sealed pools or your limited, you can play those as well. Just a heads up. Most of them are just, they're just fetch lands and shock lands.
So if you open one of those in your sealed pool, you should ask the judge to let you proxy, because those should never be played. Okay. Except by the person you're going to trade it to for a crazy amount of trade value.
Anyway.
Or sell it to for a crazy amount of sell value.
You can play those in your pool, so if you get an on-color land, go for it.
You write on a basic land and do that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for